Good evening, and welcome back to Histohispa. Tonight, we journey to the heart of the ancient world. To Rome, the eternal city, the empire that shaped Western civilization. For over 1,000 years, Rome dominated the Mediterranean world, creating an empire that stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia, from the Rhine to the Sahara. We will walk the streets of ancient Rome, from the mud huts of the early settlement to the marble palaces of the emperors. We will witness the rise of the Republic, the glory of the legions, the brilliance of Roman engineering. We will meet emperors and slaves, senators and gladiators, poets and generals. We will explore Roman law, Roman roads, Roman aqueducts, Roman baths, the infrastructure that connected an empire. We will stand in the Colosseum, walk through the Forum, gaze upon the Pantheon. We will discover how Rome conquered, how it governed, and ultimately, how it fell. And we will see how Roman legacy endures in our languages, our laws, our architecture, our very conception of civilization. Close your eyes and let your mind drift across the centuries. To the 7 hills beside the Tiber River. To a city of marble and glory, of triumph and tragedy. To the Roman Empire. Take a deep breath. Let the present world fade away. And join me as we explore the greatest empire the ancient world ever knew. To understand Rome, we must first understand the land of Italy. The Italian peninsula extends like a boot into the Mediterranean Sea, separating the western and eastern basins of that ancient sea. Italy is mountainous, dominated by 2 great mountain ranges. The Alps, Europe's highest mountains, form a natural barrier to the north, separating Italy from the rest of Europe. The Apennines, a long spine of mountains, run down the length of the peninsula, dividing east from west. Between these mountains lie fertile plains and valleys. The Po Valley in the north is wide and flat, nourished by the Po River, Italy's longest. This region, called Cisalpine Gaul in ancient times, was immensely productive, a breadbasket. Central Italy has narrower valleys and coastal plains. The region of Latium, where Rome lies, features rolling hills and the broad floodplain of the Tiber River. The soil here is volcanic, enriched by ancient eruptions from volcanoes like Vesuvius and the Alban Hills. This volcanic soil is exceptionally fertile, perfect for growing grapes, olives, and grain. The Tiber River, though not as grand as the Nile or the Euphrates, was crucial to Rome's development. It provided fresh water, a route for trade, and a defensive barrier. Rome was founded on 7 hills along the Tiber's eastern bank: the Palatine, Capitoline, Aventine, Quirinal, Viminal, Esquiline, and Caelian. These hills offered natural defense, and the valleys between them would become the forums, marketplaces, and public spaces of the growing city. The climate of central Italy is Mediterranean hot, dry summers and mild, wet winters. This climate is ideal for agriculture, supporting vineyards, olive groves, and wheat fields. Italy's long coastline provided access to the sea. The Mediterranean connected Italy to Greece, North Africa, and the Near East, enabling trade and cultural exchange. But the sea also brought danger: pirates, invaders, and rival powers. Rome would eventually dominate the Mediterranean, calling it Mare Nostrum, our sea, but that dominance came only after centuries of struggle. Now, let us turn to the origins of Rome itself. According to legend, Rome was founded on April 21, 753 BCE, by Romulus, a descendant of the Trojan hero Aeneas. The story, told by the poet Virgil in the Aeneid and by the historian Livy, is both mythic and foundational to Roman identity. Aeneas, a Trojan prince, fled burning Troy after the Greeks sacked it. Carrying his aged father on his back and holding his son's hand, Aeneas escaped with a group of survivors. After years of wandering the Mediterranean, guided by the gods, Aeneas arrived in Italy. There, he married the daughter of a local king and founded a settlement. His descendants would rule the city of Alba Longa, in the Alban Hills, southeast of Rome. Centuries later, a princess of Alba Longa, Re Silvia, was forced to become a Vestal virgin sworn to chastity. But the god Mars seduced her, and she bore twin sons Romulus and Remus. The king, fearing the twins might threaten his rule, ordered them drowned in the Tiber. But the servants tasked with the murder took pity on the infants and placed them in a basket, setting it adrift on the river. The basket washed ashore at the foot of the Palatine Hill, where a she-wolf found the crying babies. Instead of devouring them, the wolf suckled them, nursing them until a shepherd discovered and adopted them. The twins grew strong and bold. When they learned of their royal heritage, they killed the usurper king and restored their grandfather to the throne. Then, they decided to found a new city where the wolf had saved them. But the brothers quarreled over who would rule and where the city's boundaries would be. Romulus proposed the Palatine Hill. Remus favored the Aventine. They agreed to let the gods decide, watching for omens in the flight of birds. Remus saw 6 vultures, Romulus saw 12. Romulus claimed victory and began plowing a sacred boundary around the Palatine. Remus, in mockery or anger, leaped over the furrow. Romulus, enraged, killed his brother, declaring, "So perish anyone who leaps over my walls." Romulus became the sole founder and first king of Rome. This myth, with its fratricide, divine ancestry, and themes of strength and destiny, shaped Roman identity. Romans saw themselves as descendants of warriors and heroes, chosen by the gods, destined for greatness. But beneath the myth lies historical reality. Archaeological evidence suggests that settlements existed on the Palatine and other hills as early as the 10th century BCE. These were small villages of shepherds and farmers, living in wattle and daub huts, burying their dead, and trading with neighboring peoples. Over time, these villages coalesced into a single community, forming the nucleus of Rome. The early Romans were Latins, an Italic people who spoke Latin, a member of the Indo-European language family. They shared the region with other Italic tribes: Sabines, Samnites, Umbrians, and others. To the north lived the Etruscans, a mysterious and advanced civilization. The Etruscans, whose origins are still debated, were skilled metalworkers, traders, and builders. They founded cities like Tarquinia, Veii, and Caere, building elaborate tombs, temples, and walls. Etruscan culture profoundly influenced early Rome. The Etruscans introduced the arch, the vault, urban planning, and religious practices like divination. Etruscan kings ruled Rome in the 6th century BCE, transforming it from a collection of villages into a city. They drained the marshy valley between the hills, creating the Forum Romanum, Rome's central marketplace and political hub. They built temples, roads, and the Cloaca Maxima, a great sewer that still functions today. Under Etruscan rule, Rome became a true urban center, but the Romans grew to resent their foreign overlords. According to legend, the last Etruscan king, Tarquin the Proud, was a tyrant. His son, Sextus Tarquin, raped Lucretia, a virtuous Roman noblewoman. Lucretia, dishonored, summoned her family, told them what happened, and then stabbed herself to death. Her death sparked a revolution. Led by Lucius Junius Brutus, the Romans expelled the Tarquins and vowed never again to be ruled by kings. In 509 BCE, the Roman Republic was born. This date marks the beginning of a new era, a government not of kings but of citizens, a system that would endure for nearly 500 years and become the model for countless republics throughout history. Roman jurists developed sophisticated legal concepts: contracts, wills, ownership, liability. Roman law would eventually become one of Rome's greatest legacies, influencing legal systems throughout Europe and beyond. The Republic also fostered a culture of civic duty, virtus. Virtus meant courage, excellence, and manliness, but also civic responsibility. A Roman man was expected to serve the state, whether as a soldier, magistrate, or senator. Glory came not from wealth or pleasure but from service to Rome. This ethos, combined with fierce competitiveness among the elite, drove Roman expansion. Ambitious men sought military commands, conquering new territories, winning triumphs, public parades celebrating military victory, and earning the gratitude and votes of the people. But the Republic was not a democracy in the modern sense. Power was concentrated in the hands of the elite, and the system was designed to prevent radical change. Nevertheless, it was flexible, adapting over time, incorporating new citizens, and managing an expanding empire. For centuries, the Republic endured, weathering wars, invasions, and internal strife. But the very success of the Republic, its conquests and wealth, would eventually undermine it. The Roman Republic was a revolutionary political system, balancing the power of the people, the aristocracy, and elected officials. It was a government designed to prevent tyranny and ensure that no single individual could dominate. Let us explore the structure and principles of the Republic. At the heart of the Republic was the concept of spqr senatus populusque Romanus, the Senate and people of Rome. This phrase, inscribed on standards, buildings, and monuments, captured the dual sources of authority: the Senate, representing the aristocracy, and the people, the citizens of Rome. The Senate was a council of elders, originally composed of the heads of Rome's leading families, the patricians. Senators served for life, and membership was a mark of prestige and influence. The Senate did not pass laws directly, but it issued decrees, senatus consulta, that carried great weight. It controlled finances, foreign policy, and military affairs. In times of crisis, the Senate could appoint a dictator, a single leader with absolute power for a limited period, usually 6 months. This was a safeguard, allowing swift action in emergencies, but also a danger, as later events would show. The people, the plebs, were the common citizens: farmers, artisans, laborers, merchants. Initially, plebeians had little political power. But over time, through struggle and compromise, they won significant rights. The conflict of the orders, a centuries-long struggle between patricians and plebeians, transformed the republic. Plebeians gained the right to elect their own representatives, the tribunes of the plebs. Tribunes had the power of veto. They could block any action by magistrates or the Senate, protecting plebeians from abuse. They were sacrosanct, meaning their persons were inviolable. Harming a tribune was a capital offense. Plebeians also gained access to higher offices, once reserved for patricians. By the 4th century BCE, plebeians could become consuls, the highest office in the republic. The consulship was the pinnacle of Roman political ambition. 2 consuls were elected annually by the people in the centuriate assembly. Each consul had veto power over the other, ensuring that neither could act unilaterally. Consuls commanded the army, presided over the Senate, and enforced the law. After their year in office, ex-consuls often became senators, if they were not already, and were eligible to govern provinces. Other magistrates included praetors, who administered justice; aediles, who managed public works and festivals; quaestors, who handled finances; and censors, who conducted the census, assessed taxes, and supervised public morals. All these offices formed the cursus honorum, the course of honors, the sequence of offices an ambitious Roman would hold. A young man of a senatorial family would serve in the military, then seek election as quaestor, then aedile or tribune, then praetor, and finally, if fortunate and capable, consul. Achieving the consulship brought immense prestige to the individual and his family. Families whose members had held the consulship were called nobiles, nobles, and they dominated Roman politics for centuries. Laws were proposed by magistrates and voted on by popular assemblies: the centuriate assembly, the tribal assembly, and the plebeian council. Voting in these assemblies was complex. The centuriate assembly, which elected consuls and declared war, was organized by wealth and military service. Wealthier citizens, who could afford better equipment, had more votes. This gave the elite disproportionate influence, but it also reflected the republic's origins as a warrior society where those who fought had the most say. The tribal assembly, organized by geographic tribes, was more democratic, but still influenced by wealth and patronage. Roman politics was deeply tied to clientage, networks of mutual obligation. Wealthy patricians were patrons, providing legal protection, loans, and favors to their clients, poorer citizens who owed them loyalty and political support. This system, the patron-client relationship, permeated Roman society, binding citizens in webs of reciprocal duty. Roman law, ius civile, was a cornerstone of the republic. Initially, law was oral, known only to the patrician priests who interpreted it. But in 451 to 450 BCE, under pressure from plebeians, the law was codified in the 12 tables, bronze tablets displayed in the forum. The 12 tables covered property, family, injury, and procedure. Though the tablets themselves are lost, their principles were transmitted through generations and formed the foundation of Roman law. Roman law was pragmatic, focused on fairness, property rights, and the resolution of disputes. It distinguished between public law, ius publicum, governing the state and its officials, and private law, ius privatum, governing relations between citizens. From its humble origins as a small city-state, Rome expanded relentlessly, conquering the Italian peninsula and laying the foundation for empire. Let us trace this expansion and understand how Rome achieved it. In the early Republic, Rome was just one of many city-states in central Italy. It was surrounded by rivals and enemies, the Etruscan cities to the north, the Latin League to the south, the Sabines and other tribes in the hills. Rome's survival depended on military strength and strategic alliances. The Roman army of the early Republic was a citizen militia. Every Roman male was liable for military service, called up when needed, serving without pay. Soldiers provided their own equipment, and the wealthiest served as cavalry equites, while the rest fought as infantry. The basic unit was the legion, originally a phalanx of heavily armed spearmen, similar to the Greek hoplites. But over time, the Romans adapted, developing the manipular legion, a more flexible formation. The legion was divided into maniples, small units of about 120 men, arranged in a checkerboard pattern. This allowed the legion to maneuver over rough terrain, maintain cohesion, and replace frontline troops with fresh reserves. Roman discipline was legendary. Soldiers drilled constantly, marched long distances with heavy packs, and obeyed orders without question. Cowardice or mutiny was punished severely, sometimes by decimation, where every 10th man in a unit was executed by his comrades. But Rome did not rely solely on military might. It also employed diplomacy, alliances, and colonies to secure its position. After defeating an enemy, Rome often incorporated them as allies, socii, granting them autonomy but requiring them to provide troops for Roman armies. This system, the Roman Confederation, created a vast network of allied communities bound to Rome. Rome also founded colonies, settlements of Roman citizens and allies in conquered territories. These colonies served as military garrisons, securing strategic locations, and spreading Roman culture and law. Rome's first major conflict was with the Latin League, a confederation of Latin cities. After a series of wars in the 4th century BCE, Rome emerged victorious, dissolving the League and incorporating the Latins into the Roman system. Some Latin cities were granted full Roman citizenship, others became allies. This policy of integration, rather than exploitation, strengthened Rome, providing a steady supply of manpower. Rome then turned its attention to the Samnites, a powerful Italic people controlling the mountains of central and southern Italy. The Samnite Wars, lasting from 343 to 290 BCE, were brutal and protracted. The Samnites were fierce warriors, skilled in mountain warfare. They inflicted several humiliating defeats on Rome, most famously at the Caudine Forks in 321 BCE, where a Roman army was trapped in a narrow pass and forced to surrender. The defeated Romans were made to pass under a yoke of spears, a ritual of disgrace. But Rome recovered, learned from its mistakes, and eventually subdued the Samnites, incorporating them into the Roman Confederation. By the early 3rd century BCE, Rome controlled most of central Italy. But expansion brought Rome into conflict with the Greek cities of southern Italy, Magna Graecia, Greater Greece. These cities, wealthy and cultured, looked down on Rome as a backwater. When Tarentum, the leading Greek city, came under threat from Rome, it called for help from Pyrrhus, king of Epirus in Greece. Pyrrhus was a brilliant general, a distant relative of Alexander the Great, and he dreamed of carving out an empire in the west. He arrived in Italy in 280 BCE with an army of professional soldiers and 20 war elephants. The Romans had never seen elephants, and the beasts terrified their soldiers. At the Battle of Heraclea in 280 BCE, Pyrrhus defeated the Romans, though at great cost. He reportedly said, "Another such victory and I shall be ruined," giving rise to the term Pyrrhic victory, a victory won at too high a price. Pyrrhus won another costly battle at Esculum in 279 BCE, but the Romans refused to surrender, raising new armies to replace their losses. Pyrrhus, unable to deliver a decisive blow and receiving no support from the Greek cities, eventually withdrew from Italy in 275 BCE. Rome conquered Tarentum and the other Greek cities, completing the conquest of the Italian peninsula. By 270 BCE, Rome controlled all of Italy south of the Po River, a territory of immense population and resources. The Italian Confederation provided Rome with a seemingly inexhaustible supply of soldiers. While other ancient powers relied on mercenaries or small professional armies, Rome could field multiple legions, each of several thousand men, and replace losses quickly. This manpower advantage would prove decisive in the wars to come. Rome's expansion was driven by several factors. First, fear. Rome had been sacked by Gauls in 390 BCE, a traumatic event that taught Romans that only strength ensured survival. Second, competition. Roman aristocrats competed for glory and prestige, and military success was the surest path to political power. Third, plunder. War was profitable, bringing slaves, land, and treasure to Rome. Fourth, ideology. Romans believed they were destined to rule, favored by the gods, and that their conquests brought civilization and order to barbarian lands. This combination of fear, ambition, greed, and ideology propelled Rome to greatness and tragedy. But the conquest of Italy was only the beginning. Beyond Italy lay the wider Mediterranean world, home to powerful kingdoms and empires: Carthage, Macedon, Egypt, and the Seleucid Empire. Rome would clash with all of them, emerging as the dominant power of the ancient world. The Punic Wars, fought between Rome and Carthage from 264 to 146 BCE, were among the most significant conflicts in ancient history. They determined whether Rome or Carthage would control the Western Mediterranean, and they tested Rome to its limits. Let us explore these epic wars, focusing on the Second Punic War and the legendary Hannibal Barca. Carthage was a Phoenician city on the coast of North Africa, near modern-day Tunis. Founded by colonists from Tyre in the 9th century BCE, Carthage became a maritime and commercial empire. Carthaginian traders sailed across the Mediterranean and beyond, establishing colonies in Sicily, Sardinia, Spain, and North Africa. Carthage was wealthy, controlling trade routes and extracting tribute from its subjects. Its navy was the most powerful in the Mediterranean, and its merchant fleets carried goods from Africa, Spain, and the Near East. But Carthage's army was not as impressive. It relied on mercenaries, Numidian cavalry from North Africa, Iberian infantry from Spain, Gallic warriors, Balearic slingers, and others. These troops were skilled, but their loyalty depended on pay, and they lacked the cohesion and discipline of Roman legions. The First Punic War 264 to 241 BCE began as a dispute over Sicily. Rome, newly dominant in Italy, saw Carthage as a threat to its security and a barrier to further expansion. The war lasted 23 years, fought primarily at sea. Rome, despite having little naval experience, built a fleet, copying a captured Carthaginian ship. Roman ingenuity led to the corvus, a boarding bridge with a spike that allowed Roman soldiers to board enemy ships and fight hand to hand, turning naval battles into land battles. Rome won several major naval victories, and after years of attrition, Carthage sued for peace. Carthage ceded Sicily to Rome, paid a massive indemnity, and was humiliated. But the peace was fragile. Carthage, seeking to rebuild, expanded in Spain under the Barcid family. Hamilcar Barca, a general who had fought brilliantly in the First Punic War, conquered much of Spain, establishing a base of power and wealth. When Hamilcar died, his son-in-law Hasdrubal continued the expansion, founding New Carthage, modern Cartagena. But when Hasdrubal was assassinated in 221 BCE, command passed to Hamilcar's eldest son Hannibal Barca. Hannibal was only 26 years old, but he was a military genius, arguably the greatest general of antiquity. He had been raised in military camps, trained in strategy and tactics, and had sworn an oath to his father as a child to never be a friend of Rome. Hannibal saw that Rome was now the dominant power, and that Carthage's survival depended on challenging it. In 218 BCE, Hannibal provoked war by attacking Saguntum, a Spanish city allied with Rome. Rome demanded Hannibal's surrender. Carthage, fearing Rome, hesitated, but ultimately supported Hannibal. The Second Punic War had begun. Rome expected to fight in Spain and Africa, but Hannibal had other plans. He would invade Italy, the heartland of Roman power, and destroy Rome's confederation by defeating Rome in battle and convincing its allies to defect. In the spring of 218 BCE, Hannibal set out from Spain with an army of about 90,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants. His route was audacious: overland, across the Pyrenees, through southern Gaul, and over the Alps into Italy. The march was a nightmare. Hannibal faced hostile tribes in the mountains, narrow passes, rock slides, and snow. Many men and animals died from cold, hunger, and exhaustion. The elephants, unaccustomed to the cold, suffered terribly, and most perished. By the time Hannibal descended into the Po Valley, he had lost nearly half his army. But he had achieved the impossible. He was in Italy, and the Romans were caught off guard. Roman armies marched to intercept him. At the Battle of Ticinus and the Battle of Trebia in 218 BCE, Hannibal defeated the Romans decisively. His Numidian cavalry, led by Maharbal, outflanked and routed the Roman forces. The Gauls of northern Italy, enemies of Rome, flocked to Hannibal's banner, providing reinforcements. Rome, shocked but undeterred, raised new armies. In 217 BCE, at Lake Trasimene, Hannibal ambushed a Roman army in a narrow valley, trapping them against the lake. 15,000 Romans were killed, and the consul Flaminius perished. Rome was now in crisis. Hannibal was rampaging through Italy, and Rome's allies were wavering. The Senate appointed a dictator, Fabius Maximus, to deal with the threat. Fabius adopted a strategy of caution, avoiding pitched battles and instead shadowing Hannibal, harassing his foragers and denying him supplies. This became known as the Fabian strategy, or delaying tactics. It was effective but unpopular. Romans wanted a decisive victory, not a war of attrition. In 216 BCE, the Romans, impatient and confident, raised the largest army they had ever fielded, 80,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry, commanded by the consuls Varro and Paulus. They marched to confront Hannibal at Cannae, in southeastern Italy. Hannibal had about 40,000 infantry and 10,000 cavalry, significantly outnumbered. But Hannibal was a master of tactics. He deployed his infantry in a convex formation, bulging toward the Romans, with his weakest troops in the center and his best African infantry on the flanks. His cavalry was positioned on the wings. The Romans, confident in their superior numbers, charged directly at Hannibal's center. The Carthaginian center gave way, retreating slowly, drawing the Romans deeper. The Roman flanks pressed inward, compacting the Roman formation. Then, Hannibal's African infantry on the flanks wheeled inward, attacking the Roman sides. Simultaneously, Hannibal's cavalry, having routed the Roman cavalry on the wings, circled around and attacked the Roman rear. The Romans were surrounded, packed so tightly they could barely move or fight. It was a slaughter. Over the course of the day, approximately 50,000 to 70,000 Romans were killed, including the consul Paulus, many senators, and thousands of Rome's citizen soldiers. Cannae was the worst defeat in Roman history, and one of the most devastating military defeats ever recorded. Hannibal's tactics at Cannae, the double envelopment, have been studied by military strategists ever since. After Cannae, many of Rome's Italian allies defected to Hannibal, including the important city of Capua. It seemed Rome might collapse, but Rome did not surrender. The Senate refused even to discuss peace. They raised new armies, freed slaves to fight, and imposed heavy taxes. They reverted to Fabian tactics, avoiding battle with Hannibal, instead attacking his allies and cutting off his supplies. Hannibal remained in Italy for 13 more years, winning skirmishes and battles, but unable to capture Rome itself or force a decisive Roman surrender. Rome also opened new fronts. Roman armies invaded Spain, attacking Carthaginian territories there. In 206 BCE, a young Roman general, Publius Cornelius Scipio, defeated the Carthaginians in Spain and captured New Carthage. Scipio, later called Scipio Africanus, was a brilliant commander, the first Roman to match Hannibal tactically. In 204 BCE, Scipio invaded North Africa, threatening Carthage itself. Carthage, desperate, recalled Hannibal from Italy. In 202 BCE, at the Battle of Zama, Scipio faced Hannibal. Scipio had learned from Hannibal, adopting flexible tactics and securing Numidian cavalry as allies. At Zama, Hannibal's tactics failed. Scipio's Numidian cavalry defeated Hannibal's, and then attacked Hannibal's infantry from the rear, just as Hannibal had done at Cannae. Hannibal was defeated, and Carthage sued for peace. The Second Punic War ended in 201 BCE. Carthage was stripped of its empire, its navy and its wealth. It was forbidden from waging war without Roman permission. Rome emerged as the dominant power in the Western Mediterranean, but Rome was not finished with Carthage. 50 years later, fearing a Carthaginian resurgence, Rome demanded Carthage's complete destruction. The Third Punic War 149 to 146 BCE was a brutal siege. For 3 years, Roman forces besieged Carthage. The Carthaginians resisted desperately, but in 146 BCE, the Romans breached the walls. They slaughtered the population, enslaved the survivors, burned the city and, according to legend, sowed the ruins with salt so nothing would grow there again. Carthage, once Rome's greatest rival, was erased. The Punic Wars had profound consequences. Rome gained vast territories: Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica, Spain, and North Africa. It became a Mediterranean empire, no longer a city-state but a superpower. The wars also transformed Roman society. The influx of wealth, slaves, and land disrupted traditional farming and politics. Small farmers, who had served in the legions for years, returned to find their farms ruined. They sold their land to wealthy aristocrats, who created vast estates, latifundia, worked by slaves. A landless urban proletariat grew in Rome, dependent on cheap grain and public entertainment. The political system, designed for a city-state, struggled to govern an empire. Ambitious generals, commanding loyal armies, became more powerful than the Senate. The seeds of the Republic's destruction were sown in the soil of its greatest victories. We have journeyed through the origins of Rome, from the legendary she-wolf nursing Romulus and Remus to the expulsion of kings and the founding of the Republic. We have explored the structure of the Roman Republic, a government of checks and balances, senate and people, magistrates and assemblies. We have witnessed Rome's relentless expansion across Italy, forging alliances, founding colonies, and building an army that could not be defeated. And we have lived through the Punic Wars, the epic struggle with Carthage, the brilliance of Hannibal, the horror of Cannae, and the ultimate triumph of Rome. But there is much more to discover. In the next part of our journey, we will explore the further expansion of Rome, the conquest of Greece, the Near East, and Gaul. We will witness the crisis of the late Republic, the civil wars, and the rise of great men, the Gracchi brothers, Marius, Sulla, Pompey, and Julius Caesar. We will see how the Republic collapsed and gave way to empire. But for now, rest. Let the images settle: the Roman legions marching in perfect formation, Hannibal crossing the Alps, the Senate debating in the Forum, the triumphal arches commemorating victory. Breathe deeply and drift towards sleep. We will continue soon. After defeating Carthage, Rome turned its attention eastward, to the wealthy kingdoms that had emerged from Alexander the Great's empire. These were the Hellenistic kingdoms: Macedon, the Seleucid Empire, and Ptolemaic Egypt, realms of Greek culture, philosophy, art, and sophistication. Rome, still seen by many Greeks as a semi-barbarous upstart, would conquer them all. Let us explore Rome's eastern conquests and the transformation they brought. Macedon, the homeland of Alexander the Great, was ruled by the Antigonid dynasty. Philip V of Macedon had allied with Hannibal during the Second Punic War, hoping to expand into Greece while Rome was distracted. This was a grave miscalculation. After defeating Carthage, Rome turned its attention to Philip. The Second Macedonian War 200 to 197 BCE saw Roman legions invade Greece. At the Battle of Cynocephalae in 197 BCE, Roman legions faced the famed Macedonian phalanx. The phalanx, a dense formation of spearmen with 18-foot-long pikes, had been the terror of the ancient world under Alexander. But the Romans had learned from their defeats by Pyrrhus. The Manipular Legion, with its flexibility and ability to maneuver on broken ground, proved superior. The Romans attacked the phalanx's flanks and rear, where the long pikes were useless. The phalanx broke, and Macedon was defeated. Rome declared the Greek cities free, though in reality, they became Roman clients. Rome did not annex territory at first, preferring to control through alliances and influence. This policy of informal empire was cheaper and less burdensome than direct rule. But it also created instability. Greek cities quarreled, appealing to Rome to arbitrate disputes. Kings and tyrants sought Roman support against rivals. Rome was drawn deeper into Eastern affairs, often reluctantly, but always decisively. The Seleucid Empire, stretching from Syria to Persia, was ruled by Antiochus III, called the Great. Antiochus dreamed of restoring the glory of Alexander's empire. He expanded westward, into Greece and Asia Minor, alarming Rome. Rome demanded that Antiochus withdraw. When he refused, war followed. The Syrian War 192 to 188 BCE saw Roman armies invade Asia Minor. At the Battle of Magnesia in 190 BCE, the Roman general Scipio Africanus with his brother Lucius commanding defeated Antiochus's massive army, which included war elephants, chariots, and heavily armored cataphracts. The Romans, using their standard tactics, flanked and routed the Seleucid forces. Antiochus was forced to pay a crushing indemnity, surrender his fleet, and cede all territory in Asia Minor. The Seleucid Empire, once one of the largest in the world, began a long decline. Rome's next major intervention came in Macedon again. In 171 to 168 BCE, the Third Macedonian War erupted when Perseus, Philip V's son, challenged Roman dominance. At the Battle of Pydna in 168 BCE, the Roman general Aemilius Paulus annihilated the Macedonian army. This time, Rome abolished the Macedonian monarchy, dividing the kingdom into 4 republics under Roman supervision. 20 years later, after a final rebellion, Rome made Macedon a province, directly governed by a Roman governor. Greece itself was restless under Roman hegemony. The Achaean League, a federation of Greek cities, rebelled in 146 BCE. Rome responded with overwhelming force. The Roman general Mummius sacked Corinth, one of Greece's wealthiest and most beautiful cities, slaughtering the men, enslaving the women and children, and burning the city to the ground. Greece became the province of Achaea, firmly under Roman control. In Asia Minor, the kingdom of Pergamon became a Roman ally. When its last king, Attalus III, died in 133 BCE, he bequeathed his kingdom to Rome. This became the province of Asia, one of the richest territories in the empire. In the east, Rome faced the Parthian Empire, the successor to the Persian Empire, centered in Mesopotamia and Persia. Parthia was Rome's only serious rival, a vast empire with skilled horsemen, powerful nobles, and a fierce independence. Rome and Parthia would clash repeatedly over the next centuries, with neither achieving lasting dominance. Rome also became entangled with Egypt, ruled by the Ptolemaic dynasty, descendants of one of Alexander's generals. Egypt was immensely wealthy, its grain feeding much of the Mediterranean. The Ptolemies, weakened by internal strife and civil war, increasingly relied on Rome for support. Roman politicians and generals intervened in Egyptian affairs, extracting bribes, loans, and concessions. Egypt remained nominally independent, but it was effectively a Roman client state. The conquest of the East brought Rome immense wealth: gold, silver, art, slaves, and grain. Roman generals celebrated triumphs, parading captured kings, treasures, and exotic animals through Rome's streets. But the conquests also brought Greek culture to Rome. Educated Greeks, taken as slaves or hired as tutors, taught Romans philosophy, rhetoric, literature, and art. Romans, once disdainful of Greek softness, became infatuated with Greek culture. They built theaters, imported Greek statues, and wrote poetry in imitation of Greek masters. The poet Horace famously wrote, "Captive Greece took captive her savage conqueror." Rome conquered Greece militarily, but Greece conquered Rome culturally. This synthesis of Roman power and Greek culture, the Greco-Roman civilization, would define the Mediterranean world for centuries. But the wealth and power flowing into Rome had a dark side. It corrupted the Republic, enriching a few while impoverishing many. It created tensions that would tear Rome apart. By the mid-2nd century BCE, Rome was the dominant power in the Mediterranean. But internally, the Republic faced growing problems: economic inequality, political corruption, and social unrest. The crisis of the Republic would unfold over a century, culminating in civil war and the end of Republican government. Let us begin with the Gracchi brothers, whose attempts at reform exposed the Republic's fault lines. Tiberius Gracchus was born into a noble family in 163 BCE. His father had been a distinguished general and consul. His mother, Cornelia, was the daughter of Scipio Africanus, the hero of the Punic Wars. Tiberius served in the military, witnessing the destruction of Carthage in 146 BCE. Traveling through Italy, he was struck by the plight of small farmers. Once the backbone of the Republic, these farmers had been ruined by years of military service and competition from slave-worked estates. Wealthy aristocrats had accumulated vast latifundia, estates worked by slaves captured in Rome's wars. These estates produced grain, wine, and olive oil cheaply, undercutting small farmers who could not compete. Dispossessed farmers flooded into Rome, swelling the urban poor, a volatile, discontented proletariat. This was both a social and a military problem. Roman legions were recruited from landowners. If there were no small farmers, there would be no soldiers. In 133 BCE, Tiberius was elected tribune of the plebs. He proposed a land reform law: public land, ager publicus, which had been illegally occupied by wealthy aristocrats, would be reclaimed and redistributed to landless citizens. This was not radical. There were laws limiting how much public land one person could hold, but these laws were ignored. Tiberius's proposal was popular with the people, but loathed by the Senate, whose members stood to lose land and wealth. The Senate persuaded another tribune, Octavius, to veto the law. Tiberius, determined, took an unprecedented step. He convinced the plebeian assembly to remove Octavius from office. This violated the sacrosanctity of tribunes and set a dangerous precedent. Tiberius's law passed, and a commission, including Tiberius, his brother Gaius, and his father-in-law, began redistributing land. But Tiberius faced another problem. His term as tribune was ending, and he would lose his legal immunity. His enemies in the Senate would prosecute him for his actions. Tiberius did something no tribune had ever done. He ran for re-election. This was seen as a bid for permanent power, a step toward tyranny. On election day, violence erupted. A group of senators, led by the Pontifex Maximus Scipio Nasica, armed themselves with clubs and staves and attacked Tiberius and his supporters. Tiberius was beaten to death, along with 300 of his followers. Their bodies were thrown into the Tiber. This was the first political murder in Rome in nearly 400 years. The Republic's commitment to resolving disputes through law and debate had broken. Violence had entered Roman politics, and it would never leave. 10 years later, in 123 BCE, Tiberius's younger brother, Gaius Gracchus, was elected tribune. Gaius was more radical and more ambitious than his brother. He reinitiated land redistribution, but also proposed a series of sweeping reforms. He proposed subsidizing grain for the urban poor, ensuring they could afford to eat. He proposed extending Roman citizenship to Rome's Italian allies, who bore the burdens of military service but lacked political rights. He proposed reforms to the courts, shifting power from the Senate to the equestrian order, wealthy businessmen who were excluded from the Senate. Gaius was re-elected tribune, serving an unprecedented 2 consecutive terms. But his reforms alienated powerful groups: the Senate, which saw its power threatened, the urban poor, who feared competition from new citizens, and the Italian allies, who were promised citizenship but saw the promise blocked. In 121 BCE, Gaius's opponents maneuvered against him. They repealed some of his laws and spread rumors that he sought to become king. Violence broke out. The Senate passed the final decree, Senatus Consultum Ultimum, declaring a state of emergency and authorizing the consuls to take any measures necessary to preserve the state. This decree gave the government dictatorial powers. The consul Opimius led armed men against Gaius and his supporters. Gaius, fleeing, was cornered on the Aventine Hill. Rather than be captured, he ordered his slave to kill him. The slave did, then took his own life. Opimius's men killed 3,000 of Gaius's supporters, their bodies thrown into the Tiber, their property confiscated. The Gracchi brothers were dead, their reforms largely undone. But they had opened a Pandora's box. They had shown that tribunes could challenge the Senate, that the people could be mobilized for reform, and that violence could be used to settle political disputes. The Republic would never be the same. The late Republic saw the rise of powerful generals who commanded armies loyal to them personally rather than to the state. 2 of the most significant were Gaius Marius and Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Their rivalry and the precedents they set paved the way for the Republic's collapse. Let us explore their careers and the transformation of Rome. Gaius Marius was born in 157 BCE to a modest family in Arpinum, a town southeast of Rome. He was a novus homo, a new man, the first in his family to enter the Senate. Marius distinguished himself in the military, serving in Spain and Africa. In 107 BCE, he was elected consul, breaking the tradition that only nobles from established families could hold the office. Marius's rise was due to a crisis: the Jugurthine War. Jugurtha, king of Numidia in North Africa, had been at war with Rome for years. Roman armies, led by incompetent or corrupt generals, had failed to defeat him. Marius was given command and promised to end the war. He did, capturing Jugurtha through a combination of military skill and treachery by Jugurtha's ally, who betrayed him to Marius's subordinate, Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Marius returned to Rome in triumph. But a greater threat loomed. The Cimbri and Teutones, Germanic tribes migrating south, had annihilated several Roman armies in Gaul, killing tens of thousands. They threatened to invade Italy itself. Rome was terrified. The people turned to Marius, electing him consul 5 years in a row 104 to 100 BCE, an unprecedented violation of constitutional norms. But Marius delivered. He reformed the army, opening recruitment to landless citizens, the Capite censi. Previously, only landowners could serve, but the pool of such men had shrunk. Marius promised land to soldiers after their service, making the army a path to prosperity for the poor. This created armies loyal to their generals, who could provide land, rather than to the state. Marius also professionalized the legions, standardizing equipment and training, and organizing them into cohorts, units of about 480 men, more flexible than the old maniples. The Marian legion became the dominant military force of the late Republic and early Empire. In 102 and 101 BCE, Marius defeated the Cimbri and Teutones in massive battles at Aquae Secchi and Vercelli, saving Italy. Marius was hailed as the third founder of Rome, after Romulus and Camillus. But Marius's glory was tarnished by rivalry with Sulla. Lucius Cornelius Sulla was born around 138 BCE, into an old but impoverished patrician family. He served under Marius in Africa and took credit for capturing Jugurtha, a claim Marius resented. Sulla was ambitious, ruthless, and brilliant. In 88 BCE, Mithridates VE, king of Pontus in Asia Minor, invaded Roman territories, massacring 80,000 Roman and Italian civilians. Rome needed a commander for the war. The Senate assigned Sulla then consul. But Marius, though elderly, wanted the command. A tribune bribed by Marius passed a law transferring the command to Marius. Sulla, enraged, did something unprecedented. He marched his army on Rome. No Roman general had ever led an army against the city itself. It was sacrilege, a violation of every Roman tradition. But Sulla's soldiers, loyal to him and eager for plunder in the east, followed. Sulla captured Rome, declared Marius and his supporters enemies of the state, and restored his command. Then he left for the east to fight Mithridates, leaving Rome in turmoil. In his absence, Marius returned, leading his own forces. Marius captured Rome and launched a reign of terror, executing Sulla's supporters and seizing their property. Marius was elected consul for the 7th time in 86 BCE, but he died shortly after, leaving his ally Cinna in control. Sulla, meanwhile, defeated Mithridates and returned to Italy in 83 BCE. He brought his battle-hardened legions and marched on Rome again. A brutal civil war followed, the first of many that would plague the late Republic. Sulla defeated the Marian forces at the Battle of the Colline Gate in 82 BCE, narrowly saving Rome from capture. Sulla then unleashed terror. He posted proscription lists, naming thousands of his enemies who could be killed on sight. Anyone who killed a proscribed person could claim a reward. Property of the proscribed was confiscated and auctioned off. Senators, equestrians, wealthy landowners, anyone Sulla deemed an enemy, or whose wealth he coveted, was proscribed. Estimates suggest up to 9,000 were killed. Sulla then had himself appointed dictator, not for 6 months as tradition dictated, but indefinitely. He used his power to restructure the Republic. He doubled the size of the Senate, filled it with his supporters, and curtailed the powers of tribunes. He passed laws intended to restore the Senate's authority and prevent future demagogues. But in 89 BCE, Sulla did something astonishing. He resigned. He believed he had saved the Republic, restored order, and could now retire. He withdrew to his estates and lived quietly until his death in 78 BCE. Sulla's career established dangerous precedents: that generals could march on Rome, that political disputes could be settled through violence, and that a single man could dominate the state. The Republic was dying, and new contenders were emerging to fight over its corpse. In 73 BCE, a gladiator named Spartacus led the greatest slave rebellion in Roman history. Though ultimately defeated, Spartacus became a symbol of resistance and the inherent instability of a society built on slavery. Let us explore the rebellion and its significance. Slavery was fundamental to the Roman economy. Slaves were captured in wars, purchased from slave traders, or born into bondage. They worked on farms, in mines, in workshops, and in households. Some were skilled artisans or tutors, living relatively comfortable lives. Others endured brutal conditions, especially on the latifundia or in the mines, where life expectancy was short. One particularly grim fate was the gladiatorial arena. Gladiators were slaves or criminals trained to fight to the death for public entertainment. They lived in barracks, trained under harsh conditions, and faced death every time they entered the arena. Spartacus was a Thracian, from the region north of Greece, who had served as an auxiliary in the Roman army. He was enslaved. Sources differ on why, possibly for desertion or rebellion, and sold to a gladiatorial school in Capua, near Naples. In 73 BCE, Spartacus and about 70 fellow gladiators escaped, seizing kitchen knives and makeshift weapons. They fled to Mount Vesuvius, the volcano near Pompeii. Rome sent a small force to capture them, expecting an easy victory. But Spartacus was a natural leader and tactician. The gladiators used vines to rappel down the cliffs of Vesuvius and ambushed the Roman force, killing the commander and seizing weapons. Word of the revolt spread, and slaves from surrounding farms flocked to Spartacus. His army swelled to tens of thousands, then over 100,000, including not just slaves but dispossessed farmers and poor freemen. Spartacus and his company leaders, Crixus and Oenomaus, won a series of stunning victories against Roman forces. They defeated 2 praetors and their legions, capturing supplies, weapons, and Roman military equipment. Spartacus armed his followers, trained them, and transformed a ragtag mob into a disciplined army. The rebels ranged across southern Italy, attacking estates, freeing slaves, and looting. But Spartacus's goal was not to overthrow Rome or abolish slavery. He reportedly wanted to lead his followers north, across the Alps, so they could disperse and return to their homelands. Many of his followers, however, preferred to stay in Italy, enjoying their freedom, looting, and seeking revenge. In 72 BCE, Spartacus led his army north. At the Battle of Mutina, he defeated the governor of Cisalpine Gaul. The way to the Alps was open. But, for reasons debated by historians, Spartacus turned back south. Perhaps his army refused to leave. Perhaps he believed Rome was too weak to stop him. Perhaps he hoped to cross to Sicily, where earlier slave revolts had occurred. The Senate, alarmed, appointed Marcus Licinius Crassus to crush the rebellion. Crassus was one of the richest men in Rome, a shrewd politician and competent general. He was given 8 legions, about 40,000 men, and given absolute authority. Crassus imposed brutal discipline on his forces, including decimation for units that fled. He pursued Spartacus relentlessly, avoiding direct confrontation, instead wearing down the rebels. Spartacus, trapped in the toe of Italy, attempted to negotiate with Cilician pirates to ferry his army to Sicily. The pirates took his money and betrayed him, sailing away. Crassus built a wall across the peninsula, trapping Spartacus's army. In desperation, Spartacus broke through the wall during a snowstorm and headed north again. But Crassus pursued, and reinforcements arrived. Pompey the Great, returning from Spain, and Lucullus, returning from the east. In 71 BCE, at the Battle of the Sila River in southern Italy, Crassus's legions faced Spartacus's army. Spartacus, knowing defeat was likely, chose to fight rather than flee. According to the historian Plutarch, Spartacus killed his horse before the battle, saying, "If we win, I'll have plenty of horses. If we lose, I won't need one." The battle was brutal. Spartacus fought valiantly, trying to reach Crassus himself, cutting down centurions and soldiers. But the Roman legions were too strong. Spartacus was killed in the fighting, though his body was never found. Most of his army was slaughtered. 6,000 captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way, the road from Capua to Rome, their bodies left to rot as a warning to other slaves. The rebellion was over. Crassus celebrated a minor triumph, but much of the credit was claimed by Pompey, who mopped up the remnants of Spartacus's forces, and reported to the Senate that he had ended the war. This rivalry between Crassus and Pompey would shape the next decades. The Spartacus rebellion exposed the vulnerability of a society dependent on slavery. It terrified the Roman elite, demonstrating that slaves, if organized and led, could threaten the state. But it did not lead to the abolition of slavery or significant reforms. Slavery continued, and the Republic's internal contradictions remained. Spartacus, though defeated, became a legend. He inspired later revolutionaries and remains a symbol of resistance against oppression. Karl Marx and others saw him as an early proletarian hero. Films, books, and art have immortalized his story. But in his own time, Spartacus was a symptom of a dying republic, a society where the gap between rich and poor, free and slave, had grown so wide that only violence could bridge it. The last decades of the Republic saw the rise of extraordinary individuals whose ambitions and rivalries destroyed the state they claimed to serve. Three men, in particular, dominated Pompey the Great, Marcus Licinius Crassus, and Julius Caesar. Their informal alliance, the First Triumvirate, reshaped Rome and set the stage for civil war and empire. Let us explore these three men and their paths to power. Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, known as Pompey the Great, was born in 106 BCE into a wealthy family. His father was a successful but unpopular general. Pompey entered politics young, supporting Sulla during the Civil War. He raised 3 legions from his family's estates and fought brilliantly for Sulla, earning the nickname Teenage Butcher for his ruthlessness. After Sulla's death, Pompey was sent to Spain to defeat Sertorius, a Marian general leading a rebellion. The war dragged on for years, but Pompey eventually triumphed. He returned to Italy in 71 BCE, just in time to claim credit for defeating Spartacus, though Crassus had done the bulk of the fighting. In 70 BCE, Pompey and Crassus were elected consuls, despite Pompey being too young and having never held the required lower offices. The Senate bent the rules because Pompey had an army camped outside Rome, a veiled threat. Pompey then received extraordinary commands, fighting pirates who plagued the Mediterranean. In just 3 months, Pompey cleared the seas, capturing or killing thousands of pirates and restoring safe trade. He was then given command of the war against Mithridates VI of Pontus, who had invaded Roman territory again. Pompey defeated Mithridates, who fled to the Crimea and eventually committed suicide. Pompey then reorganized the East, creating new provinces, installing client kings, and vastly increasing Rome's revenues. He returned to Rome in 62 BCE, expecting adulation. But the Senate, jealous and fearful of his power, refused to ratify his eastern settlements or grant land to his veterans. Pompey, frustrated, was ripe for an alliance. Marcus Licinius Crassus, as mentioned, was fabulously wealthy. He made his fortune through real estate, buying property cheaply during Sulla's proscriptions, and through a private fire brigade. When a building caught fire in Rome, Crassus's men would arrive, but they would not extinguish the flames until the owner agreed to sell the property to Crassus at a low price. Crassus was also a politician and general, having defeated Spartacus, though Pompey overshadowed him. Crassus craved glory and military prestige to match his wealth. He aligned with Pompey, despite their rivalry, because both needed political support. The third member of the alliance was Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar was born in 100 BCE into an ancient patrician family, the Julii, which claimed descent from the goddess Venus and the Trojan hero Aeneas. But Caesar's family was not wealthy or politically dominant. Caesar's early career was marked by ambition and risk-taking. He was captured by pirates in the eastern Mediterranean and held for ransom. While captive, he joked with the pirates, promising to crucify them once he was free. After his release, he raised a fleet, captured the pirates, and had them crucified, just as he promised, though he mercifully had their throats cut first. Caesar served as quaestor, aedile, and praetor, each time spending lavishly on public games and projects, winning popularity with the people but plunging into debt. He borrowed huge sums from Crassus, betting on future political success to repay. In 60 BCE, the three men formed an informal alliance, the First Triumvirate. It was a secret pact, not a legal arrangement, but it was effective. Together they controlled enough votes, money, and military power to dominate the state. In 59 BCE, Caesar was elected consul. With the support of Pompey and Crassus, he pushed through legislation benefiting all three. He secured land for Pompey's veterans, ratified Pompey's eastern settlements, granted Crassus tax concessions, and arranged for himself a lucrative provincial command. Caesar was given Gaul, both Cisalpine northern Italy and Transalpine southern France, for 5 years, with several legions under his command. This governorship would make Caesar's fortune and reputation, and ultimately lead to civil war. Before we follow Caesar to Gaul, let us pause and consider the state of the Republic. By 60 BCE, the Republic existed in name only. The Senate, once the supreme authority, was riven by factions, corruption, and impotence. Popular assemblies were bribed or intimidated. Elections were won through violence and vote buying. Generals commanded armies loyal to them personally, not to the state. Wealth from empire flowed to a few, while the masses struggled. Slavery, conquest, and greed had hollowed out the civic virtue that once sustained the Republic. The triumvirate was not the cause of the Republic's collapse, but a symptom. Yet these three men, through their ambitions and actions, would deliver the final blow. In 58 BCE, Julius Caesar arrived in Gaul with 4 legions, about 24,000 men. Over the next 9 years, he would conquer all of Gaul, extending Roman power to the Atlantic and the Rhine, and transforming himself from a politician into one of history's greatest generals. Let us explore Caesar's Gallic campaigns and their consequences. Gaul was a vast, diverse region, inhabited by Celtic tribes. These tribes were fierce warriors, skilled in cavalry and ambush tactics, but they were disunited, often warring with each other. Caesar's genius was to exploit these divisions, allying with some tribes to conquer others, and never allowing a united Gallic resistance to form. Caesar's campaign began with the migration of the Helvetii, a Gallic tribe from what is now Switzerland. The Helvetii, under pressure from Germanic tribes, decided to migrate westward through Roman territory. Caesar used this as a pretext to intervene, blocking their path and defeating them at the Battle of Bibracte. He then pursued the Germanic leader Ariovistus, who had crossed the Rhine and was raiding Gallic tribes allied with Rome. Caesar defeated Ariovistus, driving the Germans back across the Rhine. Over the next years, Caesar campaigned relentlessly. He fought the Belgae, the fiercest of the Gallic tribes in the north. He crossed the Rhine, building a bridge in just 10 days, a feat of Roman engineering, to intimidate the Germanic tribes. He invaded Britain twice, in 55 and 54 BCE, the first Roman general to do so. Though the British campaigns were not militarily decisive, they were propaganda victories, enhancing Caesar's fame in Rome. Caesar was not just a military commander, he was a writer. He documented his campaigns in Commentarii de Bello Gallico, Commentaries on the Gallic War, a narrative written in the third person, recounting his victories and presenting himself as a champion of Roman glory and civilization. The commentaries are a masterpiece of propaganda and Latin prose, still studied today. But Caesar's conquests also provoked resistance. In 52 BCE, a young Gallic chieftain named Vercingetorix united the tribes in a desperate rebellion. Vercingetorix was a brilliant leader, employing guerrilla tactics, scorched earth policies, and avoiding pitched battles where Roman legions excelled. The rebellion was the most serious threat Caesar faced. The climax came at the Siege of Alesia, one of the most famous sieges in history. Vercingetorix and his army, about 80,000 men, retreated to the hilltop fortress of Alesia. Caesar, with about 60,000 legionaries, laid siege. But Caesar learned that a massive Gallic relief force, perhaps 250,000 warriors, was marching to break the siege. Caesar's response was audacious. He built 2 rings of fortifications. One ring, the circumvallation, surrounded Alesia, trapping Vercingetorix inside. The other ring, the controvallation, faced outward, protecting Caesar's forces from the relief army. Between the 2 rings, Caesar's legions dug trenches, erected palisades, and set traps with sharpened stakes, hidden spikes, and other obstacles. When the relief army arrived, Caesar's forces were trapped between 2 enemies, outnumbered at least 3 to 1. For days, the Gauls attacked from both sides. But the Roman fortifications, discipline, and Caesar's tactical brilliance held. Caesar himself rode to critical points, rallying his men, turning defeats into victories. Finally, the relief army, demoralized and unable to break through, retreated. Inside Alesia, supplies ran out. Vercingetorix, to save his people, surrendered to Caesar. He rode out of Alesia, laid down his arms at Caesar's feet, and was taken captive. Vercingetorix was held for 6 years, paraded in Caesar's triumph in Rome, and then executed. The fall of Alesia broke the Gallic resistance. By 51 BCE, Gaul was conquered. Caesar had extended Roman power to the Rhine and the Atlantic, adding a territory larger than Italy itself. Millions of Gauls were killed or enslaved. Ancient sources suggest 1 million dead and 1 million enslaved, though these numbers are debated. The wealth Caesar extracted from Gaul was staggering. Gold, slaves, and tribute flowed to Rome and into Caesar's coffers. He used this wealth to pay his soldiers generously, ensuring their loyalty, and to bribe politicians in Rome, maintaining his political position. But Caesar's success made him dangerous. The Senate, particularly his enemies, feared that Caesar would use his army to seize power, as Sulla had done. Pompey, once Caesar's ally, grew jealous and suspicious. Crassus, the third member of the triumvirate, had died in 53 BCE, killed in a disastrous campaign against the Parthians at the Battle of Carrhae. With Crassus gone, the alliance between Pompey and Caesar collapsed. The Senate, encouraged by Pompey, demanded that Caesar disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar knew that if he obeyed, his enemies would prosecute him, exile him, or worse. But if he refused, he would be declared an enemy of the state. Caesar faced a choice: submit and lose everything, or rebel and risk civil war. In 49 BCE, Caesar made his decision. We have journeyed through Rome's conquest of the East, the riches and culture of the Hellenistic world falling into Roman hands. We have witnessed the crisis of the Republic, the Gracchi brothers' doomed attempts at reform, and the slide toward violence and authoritarianism. We have seen the rise of Marius and Sulla, the generals who marched on Rome and shattered the Republic's norms. We have followed Spartacus, the gladiator who defied the empire, and whose rebellion revealed the cracks in Rome's foundation. And we have met the 3 titans of the late Republic: Pompey, Crassus, and Julius Caesar, whose ambitions and alliance reshaped Rome. We have marched with Caesar through Gaul, witnessing his conquest, his brilliance, and his growing power. But now, we approach the climax, the civil war that will destroy the Republic and give birth to the empire. In the next part of our journey, we will cross the Rubicon with Caesar, witness the civil war, meet Cleopatra, and see the rise of Octavian. We will watch as the Republic breathes its last and the Principate begins. But for now, rest. Let the images settle: the legions marching in perfect formation, the Senate debating in the Forum, Spartacus raising his sword, Caesar building fortifications at Alesia, the Rubicon River flowing quietly in the Italian countryside. Breathe deeply and drift toward sleep. We will continue soon. In January of 49 BCE, Julius Caesar stood on the banks of the Rubicon River, a small stream marking the boundary between his province of Cisalpine Gaul and Italy proper. Roman law forbade any governor from bringing an army into Italy without permission from the Senate. To cross the Rubicon with his legions would be an act of treason, a declaration of war against the Roman state. Caesar hesitated, understanding the magnitude of what he was about to do. According to the historian Suetonius, Caesar quoted a line from the Greek playwright Menander, "Alia iacta est, the die is cast." With those words, Caesar led his 13th legion across the river. The Roman civil war had begun. Caesar's march on Rome was swift and calculated. He advanced south with only 1 legion initially, moving faster than news of his approach. Many cities opened their gates without resistance, either out of fear or support for Caesar. The Senate, unprepared, panicked. Pompey, who had been given extraordinary powers to defend the Republic, realized he did not have enough forces to defend Rome. He made a controversial decision: he would abandon Rome and withdraw to Greece, where he could gather legions from the eastern provinces. This strategy, though sound militarily, shocked many Romans. To abandon the Eternal City seemed cowardly, even sacrilegious. But Pompey was playing a longer game. He controlled the Senate, the treasury which he had evacuated, and the wealthy eastern provinces. Time, he believed, was on his side. Caesar entered Rome unopposed in April 49 BCE. He found the city empty of his enemies, but did not declare himself dictator immediately. Instead, he convened what remained of the Senate, presented himself as a defender of the Republic, and blamed Pompey and his faction for the war. Caesar's propaganda was masterful. He portrayed himself as a man forced into action by the unreasonable demands of his enemies, a reluctant warrior seeking only his rights and honor. But Caesar did not linger in Rome. His enemies controlled vast territories: Spain, where Pompey's legates commanded several legions; Africa, where Cato the Younger and other senators held sway; and Greece, where Pompey himself was assembling forces. Caesar moved first against Spain. In a brilliant 40-day campaign, he outmaneuvered Pompey's generals, cutting off their supplies and forcing them to surrender without a major battle. "I have defeated an army without a general," Caesar quipped, "and now I will defeat a general without an army." With Spain secured, Caesar returned to Rome briefly, had himself appointed dictator for 11 days, just long enough to hold elections and secure the consulship, and then sailed for Greece. In Greece, the two titans faced each other. Pompey had assembled a massive force, 9 legions of infantry, cavalry, and a powerful navy that controlled the sea. Caesar had fewer troops, about 7 legions, but they were veterans of the Gallic Wars, hardened and loyal. The two armies maneuvered around each other through the winter of 49 to 48 BCE. Caesar attempted to besiege Pompey at Dyrrhachium, modern-day Durrës in Albania, but Pompey broke out, inflicting significant casualties on Caesar's forces. It was one of Caesar's few tactical defeats, and it emboldened Pompey. Pompey's advisors urged him to pursue and destroy Caesar's weakened army. But Pompey hesitated, perhaps out of caution, perhaps out of reluctance to shed more Roman blood. This hesitation gave Caesar time to regroup. The two armies met again at Pharsalus in Thessaly in August 48 BCE. Pompey commanded about 45,000 infantry and 7,000 cavalry. Caesar had about 22,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry. Pompey was confident his numbers were superior, his cavalry overwhelming. But Caesar was a master tactician. Pompey's plan was to use his massive cavalry to outflank Caesar's right wing and attack from the rear. Caesar anticipated this. He withdrew 6 cohorts, about 3,000 men, from his rear lines and positioned them at an angle behind his cavalry, instructed to attack Pompey's horsemen with javelins and target their faces. When the battle began, Pompey's cavalry charged. Caesar's cavalry retreated, as planned, drawing Pompey's horsemen forward. Then Caesar's hidden cohorts emerged, attacking the cavalry with disciplined aggression. Pompey's cavalry, unused to fighting infantry at close quarters and fearing injury to their faces, broke and fled. With the cavalry routed, Caesar's cohorts wheeled and attacked Pompey's infantry from the flank and rear. Pompey's lines collapsed. His soldiers, many of them inexperienced, panicked and fled. 15,000 of Pompey's men were killed or captured, the rest scattered. Pompey himself fled the battlefield, disguised as a common soldier, and rode to the coast. He boarded a ship and sailed east, seeking refuge and allies. Caesar, ever merciful to Romans, did not slaughter the defeated. He famously declared, "Let us try and see if, by showing clemency, we can win all hearts and secure a lasting victory." He pardoned many of Pompey's soldiers, allowing them to return home or join his own legions. But clemency would not save Pompey. Pompey sailed to Egypt, seeking asylum from the young pharaoh Ptolemy XIII. Egypt was a Roman client state, wealthy and theoretically neutral. But Ptolemy's advisors, calculating that Caesar was now the likely victor, decided to curry favor with him. When Pompey's ship arrived off the coast near Alexandria, Egyptian officials invited him ashore. As Pompey stepped onto the boat sent to fetch him, he was stabbed to death by men he thought were his allies. His body was beheaded, and his head was preserved in a jar to present to Caesar. When Caesar arrived in Egypt days later and was presented with Pompey's head, he reportedly wept. Pompey had been his son-in-law, married to Caesar's daughter Julia, who had died years earlier, his ally and his rival. Caesar ordered Pompey's head to be cremated with full honors and vowed to punish his murderers. But Caesar's presence in Egypt would soon entangle him in another drama, one involving power, intrigue, and one of history's most famous women. When Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria in 48 BCE, Egypt was in turmoil. The reigning pharaoh Ptolemy XIII was a boy of about 13, company ruler with his older sister and wife, Cleopatra a7. Yes, wife Ptolemaic pharaohs, following ancient Egyptian tradition, often married their siblings to keep power within the family. But Cleopatra and Ptolemy were rivals, not partners. Cleopatra, about 21 years old, had been driven from Alexandria by Ptolemy's advisors, who sought to rule through the young king. Cleopatra was in exile, raising an army to reclaim her throne. Caesar, arriving with a small force, initially intended to mediate the dispute. Egypt owed Rome a substantial debt, and Caesar needed money to fund his ongoing campaigns. He summoned both Cleopatra and Ptolemy to appear before him. Ptolemy arrived first, surrounded by his court and advisors. But Cleopatra, knowing that Ptolemy's men controlled the palace and might prevent her entry, devised a dramatic entrance. According to legend, she had herself smuggled into the palace rolled up in a carpet, or, according to some versions, a linen sack, carried by a loyal servant. The carpet was unrolled at Caesar's feet, and Cleopatra emerged. This bold, theatrical move captivated Caesar. Cleopatra was not just beautiful, though ancient sources differ on her physical appearance. She was brilliant, charismatic, and multilingual. She spoke 9 languages, including Egyptian, rare for Ptolemaic rulers, who usually spoke only Greek, and she was educated in mathematics, philosophy, astronomy, and rhetoric. Cleopatra understood power, and she understood men. She quickly seduced Caesar, not just physically but intellectually. Caesar, 52 years old, was charmed by the young queen's wit, confidence, and ambition. He decided to support Cleopatra's claim to the throne. Ptolemy's advisors, realizing Caesar favored Cleopatra, incited a mob to besiege the palace. This sparked the Alexandrian War, a months-long conflict. Caesar's forces, vastly outnumbered, were besieged in the palace complex. At one point, the Royal Library of Alexandria, one of the ancient world's greatest repositories of knowledge, caught fire during the fighting. Countless scrolls and texts were destroyed, a loss to human knowledge still mourned today. Caesar eventually received reinforcements and decisively defeated Ptolemy's forces. Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile while fleeing. Caesar installed Cleopatra as sole ruler, along with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, as a nominal company ruler. But everyone knew Cleopatra held the real power, and that power was backed by Rome and by Caesar personally. Cleopatra became Caesar's lover. In 47 BCE, she gave birth to a son, whom she named Ptolemy Caesar, but who was nicknamed Caesarion, Little Caesar. Cleopatra claimed Caesar was the father, though Caesar never publicly acknowledged the boy. Caesar and Cleopatra spent months together, reportedly taking a luxurious cruise up the Nile, accompanied by hundreds of ships. Caesar was enchanted by Egypt's wealth, its ancient culture, and its queen. But Rome called. Caesar's enemies Cato, Scipio, and others had regrouped in North Africa and Spain, raising new armies. The civil war was not over. In 46 BCE, Caesar left Egypt and marched to Africa. At the Battle of Thapsus, he crushed his enemies. Cato the Younger, the staunchest defender of the Republic and Caesar's most vocal opponent, committed suicide rather than live under Caesar's rule. Cato's death made him a martyr for the Republican cause. Caesar then turned to Spain, where Pompey's sons had raised yet another army. At the Battle of Munda in 45 BCE, Caesar faced his hardest fight. The battle was brutal, and Caesar's forces came close to breaking. Caesar himself, it was said, dismounted and stood in the front lines, rallying his men. Finally, his veterans prevailed. Pompey's sons were killed or captured, and the last significant resistance to Caesar collapsed. Caesar returned to Rome in triumph. He celebrated 4 triumphs in a single month, parading captives, treasures, and exotic animals through the streets. He distributed money to the people, held lavish games, and displayed the wealth of his conquests. Caesar also brought Cleopatra to Rome. She arrived with a large entourage in Caesarion, staying in one of Caesar's villas across the Tiber. Her presence scandalized conservative Romans, who saw her as a foreign seductress corrupting Caesar. But Caesar seemed not to care. He had a golden statue of Cleopatra placed in the temple of Venus Genetrix, linking her to the goddess his family claimed as an ancestor. Caesar now held unprecedented power. He was dictator perpetuo dictator, for life in office that made a mockery of republican government. He was consul, held the powers of a tribune, and controlled the army. He reformed the calendar, creating the Julian calendar, which with minor modifications is still used today. He initiated massive public works, draining swamps, building roads, constructing new forums and temples. He planned campaigns against Parthia and Dacia, dreaming of expanding Rome's borders even further. But Caesar also made enemies. His clemency, his refusal to punish defeated opponents, was seen as arrogance. His monopolization of power offended senators who believed in the Republic, even if that Republic was corrupt and dysfunctional. And his association with Cleopatra, rumors of plans to move the capital to Alexandria, and whispers that he wished to be king fed fears that Caesar aimed to overthrow Roman tradition entirely. A conspiracy formed, led by men who called themselves liberators. Among them were Gaius Cassius Longinus and Marcus Junius Brutus. Brutus was particularly significant. He was descended from Lucius Junius Brutus, the man who had expelled the last king and founded the Republic. Caesar trusted Brutus, even loved him. Some ancient sources suggest Brutus might have been Caesar's illegitimate son. But Brutus believed in the Republic more than he loved Caesar. On the Ides of March, the 15th of March, 44 BCE, Caesar attended a meeting of the Senate, held in the theater of Pompey. A soothsayer had warned him to beware the Ides of March, but Caesar dismissed it. Cleopatra reportedly urged him not to go. She sensed danger. But Caesar, ever confident, went. As he entered, the conspirators surrounded him. One grabbed his toga, the signal to strike. Daggers flashed. Caesar was stabbed 23 times. He tried to defend himself, but there were too many attackers. When he saw Brutus among them, Caesar reportedly said, "Kisu, teknon." You too, child. Or, in the famous Latin version, "It too, brute." Caesar pulled his toga over his head and collapsed at the base of a statue of Pompey. The greatest Roman of his age was dead. The conspirators believed they had saved the Republic. But they had only ensured its final destruction. The assassination of Julius Caesar on March 15, 44 BCE, plunged Rome into chaos. The conspirators, calling themselves liberators, believed the Republic would be restored now that the tyrant was dead. But they had no plan beyond the murder. Within hours, it became clear that killing Caesar had solved nothing. Let us follow the aftermath and the rise of new contenders for power. The day of the assassination, panic gripped Rome. The conspirators, covered in Caesar's blood, marched to the Capitol, waving their daggers and proclaiming liberty. But the people did not rejoice. Caesar had been popular with the masses, who saw him as their champion against the corrupt Senate. The conspirators soon realized they had miscalculated. Marcus Antonius, known in English as Mark Antony, was Caesar's right-hand man, his magister equitum, master of the horse. Antony was a skilled general, a charismatic speaker, and a shrewd politician. On the day of the assassination, Antony went into hiding, fearing he might be the next target. But when it became clear the conspirators had not planned beyond the murder, Antony emerged and seized the initiative. Caesar's will was read publicly. In it, Caesar left 300 sesterces to every Roman citizen and his gardens across the Tiber as public parks. More importantly, Caesar named his grandnephew, Gaius Octavius, as his heir and posthumously adopted him. Octavius, later known as Octavian and eventually as Augustus, was only 18 years old, a sickly youth with no military experience or political standing. Few, including Antony, took him seriously. But Octavian was ambitious, intelligent, and ruthless beyond his years. At Caesar's funeral, Antony delivered a masterful speech. Shakespeare's version, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears," is fictional, but Antony's actual speech was equally effective. He praised Caesar, displayed his bloodied toga, and read the will, emphasizing Caesar's generosity to the people. The crowd, inflamed, rioted. They hunted down the conspirators, who fled Rome in fear for their lives. Brutus and Cassius retreated to the eastern provinces, where they began raising armies. Antony positioned himself as Caesar's political successor, expecting to step into his role. But then Octavian arrived in Rome, claiming his inheritance. Antony dismissed the boy, refusing to hand over Caesar's funds and treating him with contempt. Octavian, however, was not deterred. He began winning over Caesar's veterans, paying them with his own borrowed money, and reminding them that Caesar had named him as his son. He also cultivated relationships with influential senators, presenting himself as a moderate counterbalance to Antony's ambition. Cicero, the great orator and statesman, saw Octavian as a tool to use against Antony. Cicero loathed Antony, whom he saw as a crude, drunken thug. He delivered a series of speeches, the Philippics, attacking Antony and praising Octavian. Cicero famously remarked that Octavian was a young man to be praised, honored, and discarded. This would prove a fatal miscalculation. In 43 BCE, the Senate authorized Octavian to lead an army against Antony, who had been declared a public enemy. At the Battle of Mutina, Octavian and the consuls defeated Antony, who fled north to Gaul. But the consuls were killed in the fighting, leaving Octavian in command. Octavian then marched on Rome with 8 legions, forcing the Senate to appoint him consul at the age of 19, the youngest in Roman history. Octavian realized that defeating Antony militarily was unnecessary and perhaps unwise. Antony still commanded legions, and both faced a common enemy, Brutus and Cassius, who controlled the east and commanded 17 legions. Octavian, Antony, and a third general, Marcus Lepidus, met in November 43 BCE on a small island in a river near Bononia, modern Bologna. For 3 days they negotiated. The result was the Second Triumvirate, a legally sanctioned dictatorship of 3 men with power to make laws, appoint magistrates, and govern Rome without Senate approval. Unlike the First Triumvirate, which was informal, the second was official and absolute. The triumvirs divided the Roman world among themselves. Antony took the east, Octavian the west, and Lepidus North Africa and Spain. But their first act was brutal: the proscriptions. Like Sulla before them, the triumvirs published lists of enemies to be killed, their property confiscated to fund the coming war. Estimates suggest 300 senators and 2,000 equestrians were proscribed. Among the victims was Cicero. Antony, who despised Cicero for the Philippics, insisted on his death. Octavian, who owed Cicero much, agreed, sacrificing his ally for political expediency. Cicero was hunted down and killed as he tried to flee Italy. His head and hands were cut off and displayed on the rostra in the Forum, where he had delivered his greatest speeches. Antony's wife, Fulvia, reportedly stabbed Cicero's tongue with her hairpin, a final act of spite. With Rome secured and their enemies' wealth seized, the triumvirs turned east. In 42 BCE, Octavian and Antony crossed to Greece with 28 legions to face Brutus and Cassius. At Philippi in Macedonia, 2 battles were fought. In the first, Cassius's forces were defeated, and he, believing Brutus had also lost, committed suicide. In the second battle, Antony's tactical brilliance overwhelmed Brutus's forces. Brutus, seeing his cause lost, fell on his sword. The liberators were dead, and the republic which they had killed Caesar to save, died with them. After Philippi, the triumvirs divided the spoils. Octavian returned to Italy to settle veterans on confiscated land, a task that made him unpopular. Antony went east to secure the provinces and raise funds. Lepidus, increasingly sidelined, was eventually stripped of power and retired. The triumvirate was now a rivalry between Octavian and Antony. And into this rivalry stepped Cleopatra. Mark Antony, at 41, was at the height of his power and charisma. He was a brilliant general, a man of immense appetites for wine, food, women, and glory. He saw himself as a new Alexander, a conqueror of the East. In 41 BCE, Antony summoned Cleopatra to meet him in Tarsus, in modern-day Turkey. He intended to demand her support and funds for his planned campaign against Parthia. But Cleopatra, now 28, was no longer the desperate exile who had charmed Caesar. She was the unchallenged queen of Egypt, one of the wealthiest and most powerful rulers in the Mediterranean. Cleopatra arrived in Tarsus in spectacular fashion. She sailed up the river Cydnus on a magnificent barge, its sails purple, its oars silver, moving to the rhythm of flutes and harps. She reclined under a canopy of gold cloth, dressed as the goddess Venus Aphrodite, surrounded by attendants dressed as nymphs. The entire display was a carefully orchestrated piece of theater, designed to awe and seduce. It worked. Antony was captivated. Where Caesar had been charmed by Cleopatra's intellect, Antony was overwhelmed by her sensuality and grandeur. Cleopatra invited Antony to a banquet of unimaginable luxury. According to Pliny the Elder, Cleopatra, to demonstrate her wealth, dissolved a priceless pearl in vinegar and drank it, winning a bet with Antony over who could host the most expensive feast. Antony fell in love, or at least in lust, with Cleopatra. He followed her to Alexandria, where they spent the winter of 41 to 40 BCE in indulgent celebration. They formed a drinking club called the Inimitable Livers, hosting lavish feasts, gambling, and wandering the streets of Alexandria in disguise, playing pranks on citizens. But Antony's dalliance had political consequences. In Rome, Octavian was portraying Antony as a dissolute Easterner, seduced by a foreign queen, neglecting his Roman duties. Antony's wife, Fulvia, and his brother, Lucius, rebelled against Octavian in Italy, hoping to force Antony to return. The Perusian War ended with Octavian's victory, and Fulvia died shortly after. Antony returned to Italy in 40 BCE, bringing his legions to the brink of civil war with Octavian. But both men pulled back. Their soldiers, veterans who had served together under Caesar, refused to fight each other. A reconciliation was arranged. To seal the peace, Antony married Octavian's sister, Octavia, a virtuous and respected woman. For a time, the triumvirate held. Antony governed the east, Octavian the west. Antony launched his long-planned campaign against Parthia in 36 BCE, seeking to avenge the defeat at Carrhae and to win the military glory that eluded him. But the campaign was a disaster. Antony lost thousands of men to Parthian horse archers, disease, and winter cold. He was forced to retreat, his reputation damaged. Meanwhile, Octavian was consolidating power in Rome. He defeated Sextus Pompey, the last of Pompey the Great's sons, who had controlled Sicily and threatened Rome's grain supply. Octavian was also carefully cultivating his image, the responsible leader, the dutiful Roman, the protector of Italy and Roman tradition. Antony, frustrated and humiliated by his Parthian failure, returned to Alexandria and to Cleopatra. He abandoned Octavia, sending her a divorce, and publicly acknowledged his relationship with Cleopatra. He also recognized Caesarion, Cleopatra's son by Caesar, as Caesar's legitimate heir, a direct challenge to Octavian, who was Caesar's adopted son. Antony and Cleopatra held a ceremony, the Donations of Alexandria, in which Antony declared Cleopatra Queen of Kings and Caesarion King of Kings. He gave her and her children territories: Egypt, Cyprus, Crete, Cilicia, Judea. These territories were technically under Roman control, and Antony's actions were seen in Rome as giving away Roman lands to a foreign queen. Octavian exploited this brilliantly. He portrayed Antony as a traitor, a man who had abandoned Rome, his wife, and his Roman identity for an Egyptian queen. He portrayed Cleopatra as a scheming, power-hungry witch who had seduced and corrupted Antony, intending to rule Rome herself. Octavian's propaganda was relentless and effective. In 32 BCE, Antony formally divorced Octavia. Octavian responded by illegally seizing Antony's will from the Vestal virgins, who held it in trust, and reading it publicly. The will allegedly revealed that Antony wished to be buried in Alexandria, not Rome, and that he left vast territories to Cleopatra's children. Whether the will was genuine or forged is debated, but the damage was done. The Senate, at Octavian's urging, declared war not on Antony, but on Cleopatra. This allowed Octavian to frame the conflict as Rome defending itself against a foreign enemy, not a civil war between Romans. In 31 BCE, the two sides prepared for a final confrontation. Antony and Cleopatra assembled a massive fleet and army in Greece. Octavian, advised by his brilliant general Marcus Agrippa, crossed the Adriatic with a smaller but more disciplined force. The decisive battle took place at Actium, a promontory on the western coast of Greece, on September 2nd in 31 BCE. Antony's fleet, numbering over 200 ships, faced Octavian's fleet, commanded by Agrippa. The battle was indecisive for hours, ships ramming, soldiers fighting on decks. Then, inexplicably, Cleopatra's squadron, 60 ships, broke formation and fled south, toward Egypt. Antony, seeing this, abandoned his flagship and followed Cleopatra on a smaller, faster ship. His fleet, leaderless, eventually surrendered. His army, demoralized, defected to Octavian. The Battle of Actium was not a crushing military defeat but a psychological collapse. Antony and Cleopatra retreated to Alexandria, where they spent the winter in despair and denial. They held one final banquet, dissolved the inimitable livers, and founded a new club, the Inseparable in Death. Octavian pursued them, arriving in Egypt in 30 BCE. Antony, hearing a false rumor that Cleopatra had killed herself, fell on his sword. Mortally wounded, he was carried to Cleopatra's mausoleum, where she had barricaded herself. He died in her arms. Cleopatra attempted to negotiate with Octavian, hoping to save her children and her kingdom. But Octavian was unmoved. He intended to parade her in his triumph in Rome. Cleopatra, the proud queen, refused this final humiliation. On August 12, 30 BCE, she committed suicide, reportedly by allowing an asp, a venomous snake, to bite her. Octavian annexed Egypt, making it his personal property, not a province of Rome. Egypt's wealth would fund his consolidation of power. Caesarion, Cleopatra's son by Caesar, was hunted down and killed, eliminating any rival claim to Caesar's legacy. Cleopatra's other children were spared and raised by Octavia, Antony's abandoned wife, a final, gracious act. The civil wars were over. Rome had a single master, Octavian. The Republic, which had endured for nearly 500 years, was dead. The empire was about to be born. In 27 BCE, 4 years after Actium, Octavian stood before the Senate and performed a masterful piece of political theater. He announced that he was laying down his extraordinary powers and restoring the Republic. He had saved Rome from civil war, he said, and now it was time to return to constitutional government. The Senate, carefully packed with his supporters, reacted with feigned horror. They pleaded with him not to abandon Rome, to continue guiding the state. After much staged reluctance, Octavian agreed to continue serving Rome. The Senate granted him a new title, Augustus, meaning the revered one, a term with religious overtones. They granted him proconsular authority over the most important provinces, where the legions were stationed, effectively giving him control of the military. They granted him the powers of a tribune, allowing him to veto any action and to propose legislation. He retained his position as princeps, first citizen, and became Pontifex Maximus, high priest of the Roman religion. Octavian, now Augustus, held all the levers of power but without appearing to be a king or dictator. He lived modestly, wore simple clothing, and portrayed himself as the first among equals, the princeps. This was the Principate, a system that maintained the forms and titles of the Republic while concentrating power in one man. Augustus was careful never to call himself emperor. That term would come later, but he was the first Roman emperor in all but name. Augustus's reign transformed Rome. He inherited a city of brick and left it a city of marble, as he boasted. He commissioned vast building projects, the Forum of Augustus, with its Temple of Mars altar, the Ara Pacis, the Altar of Peace, celebrating the peace he had brought, the Theater of Marcellus, and countless temples, basilicas, and aqueducts. Rome became the most magnificent city in the world, a symbol of Roman power and culture. Augustus also reformed the army, creating a professional, standing force. He reduced the number of legions to 28, about 150,000 men, stationed along the borders. He established the Praetorian Guard, elite soldiers stationed in Rome to protect the emperor. He created a defined career path for soldiers, with fixed terms of service and retirement benefits. Augustus reformed the administration, creating a civil service staffed by equestrians and freedmen, reducing the Senate's role in governance. He reformed taxation, making it more efficient and less corrupt. He promoted Roman law, codifying and standardizing legal procedures. Augustus also promoted moral reforms, attempting to revive traditional Roman virtues. He passed laws encouraging marriage and childbearing among the upper classes, and laws punishing adultery. He cultivated his image as a restorer of traditional values, piety, and discipline. But Augustus also established a dynasty. He had no sons, so he adopted his stepsons, Tiberius and Drusus, and groomed them as successors. When Drusus died, Tiberius became the heir. Augustus carefully ensured that power would pass within his family, creating the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Augustus's reign, from 27 BCE to 14 CE, was the longest and one of the most successful in Roman history. He brought peace after a century of civil war, a peace known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. This peace would last, with occasional interruptions, for over 200 years. Trade flourished, cities grew, and Roman culture spread across the empire. Augustus also expanded the empire's borders. He conquered new territories in Spain, the Alps, and along the Danube. But he also suffered a devastating defeat. In 9 CE, 3 Roman legions, led by Publius Quinctilius Varus, were ambushed and annihilated in the Teutoburg forest by Germanic tribes led by Arminius. 15,000 to 20,000 Romans were killed, and the legion's eagle's sacred standards were captured. The disaster shocked Rome and convinced Augustus to abandon further expansion into Germany. He reportedly paced his palace, crying, "Quintili ver, legions red! Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions!" The Rhine and Danube became the permanent borders in the north, a frontier that would define Rome's limits for centuries. Augustus died in 14 CE at the age of 75, in the same room where his father had died. His last words, reportedly, were a quote from a Greek play, "Have I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit." It was a fitting end for a man who had staged the greatest political performance in history, transforming a republic into an empire while maintaining the illusion of continuity. Augustus was deified, declared a god by the Senate, temples were built to him, and worship of the emperor became part of Roman religion. Tiberius, his adopted son, succeeded him, and the Julio-Claudian dynasty continued. The republic was gone, but few mourned it. The civil wars, the chaos, the violence, Romans were willing to trade liberty for peace and stability. And Augustus, whatever his ambitions, had delivered both. We have crossed the Rubicon with Caesar, witnessing the audacity and brilliance of one of history's greatest men. We have seen the civil war, the conquest of enemies, and the strange, passionate entanglement with Cleopatra, the queen who captivated 2 of Rome's mightiest leaders. We have witnessed the assassination, the blood on the Senate floor, and the naive belief that killing Caesar would restore the Republic. We have followed Octavian, the sickly boy who became Augustus, who defeated Antony and Cleopatra, who ended the civil wars, and who transformed Rome from a republic into an empire. And we have seen the birth of the Principate, the clever fiction that preserved republican forms while concentrating absolute power in one man. But our journey is not over. In the final part, we will explore the empire at its height, the Pax Romana, the golden age of Rome. We will meet the good and bad emperors, witness the triumphs and tragedies of imperial rule. We will explore Roman life, culture, engineering, and law. And we will witness the decline and fall, the barbarian invasions, the division of the empire, and the end of ancient Rome. But for now, rest. Let the images settle: Caesar standing at the Rubicon, Cleopatra sailing up the Cydnus, Antony and Cleopatra's last banquet, Augustus addressing the Senate, the marble glory of imperial Rome. Breathe deeply and drift towards sleep. We will continue soon to the final chapter of Rome's story. After Augustus's death in 14 CE, the Principate passed to his stepson, Tiberius. The Julio-Claudian dynasty would rule Rome for the next 54 years, producing 5 emperors: Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. Some were capable rulers, others descended into madness and tyranny. Let us explore these emperors and the early imperial period. Tiberius, who ruled from 14 to 37 CE, was a capable general but a reluctant emperor. He was 55 when he took power, and he had spent much of his life in Augustus's shadow. Augustus had preferred other heirs, his grandsons Gaius and Lucius, but both died young, leaving Tiberius as the only viable successor. Tiberius was competent and conscientious. He maintained Augustus's policies, governed efficiently, and kept the empire at peace. He was fiscally responsible, leaving a full treasury at his death. But Tiberius was also dour, distrustful, and increasingly paranoid. He clashed with the Senate, whom he saw as hypocritical and self-serving. In 26 CE, Tiberius retired to the island of Capri, off the coast of southern Italy, and ruled from there for the last 11 years of his life. Rumors circulated about depraved activities on Capri: orgies, torture, and other excesses, though many of these stories were likely propaganda by his enemies. During Tiberius's reign, Jesus of Nazareth was crucified in Judea, a minor event at the time, but one that would have profound consequences for Rome and the world. Tiberius left power in the hands of Sejanus, the prefect of the Praetorian Guard, who used his position to consolidate power and eliminate rivals. But Tiberius eventually turned on Sejanus, having him arrested and executed for treason. Tiberius died in 37 CE, possibly smothered by the Praetorian prefect, though sources are unclear. Few mourned him, and the people of Rome welcomed his successor, his grandnephew, Gaius, known as Caligula. Caligula, meaning little boots, was a nickname from his childhood, when he wore miniature soldiers' boots while accompanying his father's legions. He was the son of Germanicus, a beloved general, and the great-grandson of Augustus. Caligula began his reign with promise. He was young, charismatic, and popular. He freed political prisoners, reduced taxes, and held lavish games. But after a severe illness in his first year, Caligula changed. He became erratic, cruel, and megalomaniacal. Caligula declared himself a living god, demanding worship. He built a temple to himself, and had statues of the gods replaced with his own image. He planned to place a statue of himself in the Jewish temple in Jerusalem, a plan abandoned only because of fierce Jewish resistance. Caligula's behavior grew increasingly bizarre. He reportedly made his horse, Insatus, a consul, though this may be exaggeration or satire by hostile sources. He held mock naval battles in which hundreds of prisoners fought and died for his entertainment. He executed senators on a whim, seizing their property. He lavished money on absurd projects, bankrupting the treasury. In 41 CE, after just 4 years in power, Caligula was assassinated by members of the Praetorian Guard, who stabbed him to death in a palace corridor. His wife and infant daughter were also killed. The Senate debated restoring the Republic, but the Praetorian Guard had other plans. They found Caligula's uncle, Claudius, hiding behind a curtain in the palace, terrified he would be killed. The Praetorians declared Claudius emperor, and the Senate, faced with armed soldiers, acquiesced. Claudius, who ruled from 41 to 54 CE, was an unlikely emperor. He was 50 years old, physically frail, with a limp, a stammer, and a tendency to drool. His family had considered him an embarrassment, keeping him out of public life. But Claudius was highly intelligent, a scholar who had written histories of the Etruscans and Carthaginians. As emperor, Claudius proved capable. He reformed the bureaucracy, employing freedmen in key administrative roles, creating a professionalized civil service. He reformed the law, presiding over court cases himself, and making legal decisions that set precedents. He expanded the empire, conquering Britain in 43 CE, the first significant expansion since Augustus. Roman legions under General Aulus Plautius landed in Britain, defeated local tribes, and established the province of Britannia. Claudius personally visited Britain, a propaganda triumph that boosted his prestige. But Claudius's personal life was tumultuous. He was married 4 times and his wives were notorious. His third wife, Messalina, was accused of promiscuity and plotting against him. She was executed. His fourth wife, Agrippina the Younger, was his niece, and their marriage required a change in Roman law. Agrippina was ambitious and ruthless. She had a son from a previous marriage, Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, whom Claudius adopted and renamed Nero. In 54 CE, Claudius died suddenly after eating a dish of mushrooms. Most historians believe Agrippina poisoned him to secure Nero's succession. Nero, only 16 years old, became emperor. Nero's reign, from 54 to 68 CE, began well. Advised by the philosopher Seneca and the Praetorian prefect Burrus, Nero governed moderately. He reduced taxes, improved the administration of justice, and supported the arts. Nero fancied himself an artist, a musician, and a poet. He performed publicly, singing and playing the lyre, and competed in chariot races. This was scandalous behavior for an emperor, as performing in public was considered beneath the dignity of a Roman nobleman. But Nero craved applause and adoration. Over time, Nero's behavior deteriorated. He murdered his mother, Agrippina, in 59 CE, after she became too controlling. He divorced and executed his first wife, Octavia, to marry Poppaea Sabina. When Poppaea died, some say Nero kicked her to death while she was pregnant. Nero allegedly found a young boy who resembled her, had him castrated, and married him. In 64 CE, a great fire devastated Rome, burning for 6 days and destroying much of the city. Rumors spread that Nero had started the fire to clear land for his grandiose building projects, including the Domus Aurea, the Golden House, a vast palace complex. The rumors, likely false, claimed Nero played the lyre and sang while Rome burned, the origin of the phrase Nero fiddled while Rome burned. To deflect blame, Nero scapegoated a small religious sect, the Christians. Christians were arrested, tortured, and executed in gruesome ways, crucified, burned alive, or torn apart by dogs in the arena. Among the victims were reportedly the apostles Peter and Paul. This was the first major persecution of Christians by Rome. Nero's extravagance and misrule alienated the Senate, the army, and the people. In 68 CE, revolts erupted in Gaul and Spain. The Senate declared Nero a public enemy. Abandoned by the Praetorian Guard and facing certain death, Nero fled Rome. On June 9, 68 CE, as soldiers closed in, Nero committed suicide, reportedly saying, "What an artist dies in me." With Nero's death, the Julio-Claudian dynasty ended. What followed was chaos, the year of the four emperors, 69 CE, when four men claimed the throne in rapid succession, each supported by different legions. Galba, an elderly senator, ruled briefly before being murdered. Otho, a former friend of Nero, seized power but was defeated by Vitellius, a general from Germany. Vitellius, indulgent and incompetent, was overthrown by Vespasian, a general from the east. Vespasian, a capable and pragmatic soldier, restored order, founding the Flavian dynasty. After the chaos of the 1st century CE, Rome entered a period of remarkable stability and prosperity. The 2nd century CE, from 96 to 180 CE, saw the reigns of the five good emperors Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. These emperors were chosen not by birth but by merit, each adopting a capable successor. This period, the height of the Pax Romana, is often considered Rome's golden age. Let us explore these rulers and the empire they governed. Nerva, who ruled from 96 to 98 CE, was an elderly senator chosen by the Senate after the assassination of the tyrannical Domitian. Nerva's reign was brief, but he established a crucial precedent. He adopted Trajan, a successful general, as his heir. This adoption principle ensured competent leadership and avoided the chaos of dynastic succession. Trajan, who ruled from 98 to 117 CE, was the first emperor born outside Italy, in the province of Hispania. He was a soldier's emperor, beloved by the legions. Trajan expanded the empire to its greatest territorial extent. He conquered Dacia, modern Romania, a rich kingdom north of the Danube, adding vast gold and silver mines to Rome's treasury. Trajan's Column in Rome, a massive marble pillar covered with relief sculptures, commemorates this victory. Trajan also campaigned in the east, conquering Armenia and Mesopotamia, reaching the Persian Gulf. For a brief moment, the Roman Empire stretched from the Atlantic to the Persian Gulf, from Britain to the Sahara. But Trajan's eastern conquests were short-lived. Revolts erupted, and Trajan, falling ill, died in 117 CE while returning to Rome. Trajan was deified and remembered as one of Rome's greatest emperors, the model of the soldier ruler. Hadrian, Trajan's adopted son and successor, ruled from 117 to 138 CE. Hadrian was intellectual, cultured, and curious, a lover of Greek art and philosophy. He was also a realist. Recognizing that Trajan's eastern conquests were unsustainable, Hadrian withdrew from Mesopotamia and Armenia, consolidating the empire's borders. Hadrian traveled extensively, spending much of his reign visiting the provinces, inspecting fortifications, and promoting Roman culture. In Britain, he built Hadrian's Wall, a 73-mile stone barrier separating Roman Britain from the tribes of Scotland. The wall was both a defensive fortification and a symbol of Roman order and civilization. Hadrian rebuilt the Pantheon in Rome, the temple to all the gods, with its magnificent domed roof, an architectural marvel that still stands today. Hadrian was also a patron of the arts and philosophy. He had a famous relationship with Antinous, a young man from Bithynia, whom Hadrian loved deeply. When Antinous drowned in the Nile in 130 CE, Hadrian was devastated. He deified Antinous, founded a city in his honor, and commissioned countless statues of him. Hadrian's openness about his love for Antinous shocked some Romans, but also reflected the more cosmopolitan, Hellenized culture of the empire. Hadrian died in 138 CE, and his adopted son, Antoninus Pius, succeeded him. Antoninus Pius ruled from 138 to 161 CE, a period of peace and prosperity. His reign was so uneventful that it is sometimes called boring, but this was a sign of good governance. No major wars, no revolts, no crises, just steady, competent administration. Antoninus Pius was beloved for his piety, his justice, and his moderation. Marcus Aurelius, adopted by Antoninus Pius, succeeded him in 161 CE. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled until 180 CE, was a philosopher-emperor, a practitioner of Stoicism. Stoicism, a Greek philosophy, taught that virtue is the only good, that external events are beyond our control, and that we should accept fate with equanimity. Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations, a personal journal of Stoic reflections, never intended for publication. The Meditations is one of the great works of philosophy, exploring duty, mortality, and the nature of the good life. Despite his philosophical temperament, Marcus Aurelius spent much of his reign at war. The Parthians invaded the east, and Germanic tribes crossed the Danube in the north. Marcus Aurelius personally led campaigns, spending years on the frontier, living in military camps, and writing his meditations by candlelight. He defended the empire, but the constant warfare exhausted Rome's resources. A devastating plague, the Antonine Plague, possibly smallpox, swept through the empire in 165 to 180 CE, killing millions and weakening the economy and the army. Marcus Aurelius died in 180 CE, possibly from the plague, while campaigning on the Danube frontier. His son, Commodus, succeeded him, and with Commodus, the Golden Age ended. Commodus was everything his father was not: vain, cruel, and unstable. He saw himself as a gladiator, fighting in the arena and demanding to be worshipped as Hercules. His misrule led to his assassination in 192 CE, plunging Rome into another civil war. But the era of the five good emperors, from 96 to 180 CE, represented Rome at its zenith. The empire was vast, prosperous, and relatively peaceful. Cities flourished, trade connected distant provinces, and Roman culture spread across 3 continents. Let us explore this empire and the daily life within it. At its height in the 2nd century CE, the Roman Empire was home to perhaps 60 to 70 million people, spread across an area of nearly 2 million square miles. It was the most diverse empire the world had yet seen, encompassing Greeks and Gauls, Egyptians and Britons, Syrians and Spaniards. Yet it was united by Roman law, Roman roads, and the Latin language. Let us explore daily life in the empire, the culture, and the innovations that defined Roman civilization. Roman society was hierarchical, divided into clear classes. At the top were the emperor and the imperial family. Below them were senators, the old aristocracy, though their political power had diminished under the empire. Next came the equestrians, wealthy businessmen and officials. Then the plebeians, freeborn citizens, including farmers, artisans, and merchants. Below them were freedmen, former slaves who had been manumitted. And at the bottom were slaves, who had no rights and were considered property. Slavery was fundamental to the Roman economy. Slaves worked in mines, on farms, in workshops, and in households. Some were highly educated, serving as tutors, doctors, or accountants. Treatment varied. Some slaves lived in brutal conditions, others were treated as part of the family and could eventually earn their freedom. Manumission, the freeing of slaves, was common, and freedmen could become wealthy and influential, though they could never fully escape the stigma of their past. The Roman family, familia, was patriarchal. The paterfamilias, the male head of the household, had absolute authority over his wife, children, slaves, and property. He could legally execute his own children, though this was rare and socially condemned. Roman marriages were often arranged for political or economic reasons. Women married young, often in their early teens, to men much older. Divorce was common and relatively easy, requiring no legal proceedings. Roman women had more freedom than their Greek counterparts. Elite women could own property, run businesses, and exert influence, though they could not vote or hold political office. Women like Livia, Augustus's wife, and Julia Domna, wife of Emperor Septimius Severus, wielded significant power behind the scenes. Education was valued, at least for the elite. Boys learned reading, writing, arithmetic, and rhetoric, often studying Greek as well as Latin. Wealthy families hired Greek tutors or sent their sons to Athens or Rhodes to study philosophy. Girls were also educated, though less formally, learning domestic skills and sometimes literature. Cities were the heart of Roman civilization. Rome itself, with a population of over 1 million, was the largest city in the ancient world. But cities like Alexandria, Carthage, Antioch, and Ephesus were also major centers of culture and commerce. Roman cities were built on a grid plan, with straight streets intersecting at right angles. At the center was the Forum, an open plaza surrounded by temples, basilicas, public buildings for law and commerce, and markets. The Forum was the political, commercial, and social heart of the city. Aqueducts brought fresh water from distant sources, sometimes dozens of miles away, using gravity to maintain flow. These aqueducts, built with arches and tunnels, were engineering marvels. The Pont du Gard in southern France, a three-tiered aqueduct bridge, still stands as a testament to Roman engineering. Water flowed to public fountains, baths, and wealthy homes. Public baths, thermae, were central to Roman social life. They were not just for bathing but for exercise, socializing, and relaxation. A typical bath complex included a caldarium hot room, tepidarium warm room, and frigidarium cold room, as well as exercise yards, libraries, and gardens. The baths of Caracalla in Rome could accommodate 1,600 bathers at once. Entry was cheap, often just a small coin, making baths accessible to all classes. Romans bathed daily, scraping oil and dirt from their skin with a curved metal tool called a strigil. Entertainment was also important. The Colosseum, the Flavian amphitheater, could hold 50,000 spectators. Gladiatorial games, Venetians' animal hunts, and public executions were held there. Gladiators were usually slaves, prisoners of war, or criminals, though some free men volunteered for fame and fortune. Fights were often to the death, though skilled gladiators could earn their freedom after years of victories. The games were brutal, but they were also a form of social control, providing free entertainment to the masses and demonstrating Roman power. The Circus Maximus, a vast chariot racing stadium, could hold over 150,000 spectators. Chariot racing was wildly popular, with rival factions blues, greens, reds, and whites inspiring fanatical loyalty. Riots sometimes erupted between factions. Roman engineering extended to roads. The Romans built over 50,000 miles of paved roads, connecting the empire. The Via Appia, the Appian Way, built in 312 BCE, ran from Rome to southern Italy, paved with fitted stones, and is still partially usable today. Roman roads were built for military transport, but also facilitated trade and communication. Milestones marked distances, and way stations provided rest for travelers. Roman law was another great achievement. Roman jurists developed sophisticated legal principles, the presumption of innocence, the right to a defense, contracts, property rights, and torts. Roman law distinguished between natural law, applicable to all people, and civil law, specific to Roman citizens. Roman law influenced legal systems throughout Europe and, through European colonialism, the world. Roman architecture gave the world the arch, the vault, and the dome. Concrete, invented by the Romans, allowed for large, durable structures. The Pantheon's dome, 142 feet in diameter, was the largest in the world until the Renaissance. Roman literature flourished. Virgil's Aeneid celebrated Rome's founding and Augustus's reign. Ovid's Metamorphoses retold Greek myths with wit and style. Horace, Catullus, and Martial wrote poetry ranging from the sublime to the obscene. Historians like Livy, Tacitus, and Suetonius chronicled Rome's history. Philosophers like Seneca and Epictetus explored Stoicism, teaching virtue, self-control, and acceptance of fate. Roman religion was polytheistic and syncretic, absorbing gods from conquered peoples. Romans worshipped Jupiter, king of the gods, Mars, god of war, Venus, goddess of love, and many others. Temples, sacrifices, and festivals honored the gods. But Romans were also practical. Religion was about maintaining the Pax Deorum, peace with the gods, ensuring divine favor through proper rituals. The imperial cult, worship of the emperor as a god, reinforced political loyalty. Into this diverse, cosmopolitan world came a new religion, Christianity. Christianity began as a small Jewish sect in 1st century Judea, centered on the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus, a charismatic preacher, proclaimed the coming of God's kingdom and taught love, forgiveness, and repentance. He attracted followers but also enemies among Jewish religious authorities and Roman officials. In approximately 30 CE, Jesus was arrested, tried, and crucified by order of Pontius Pilate, the Roman prefect of Judea. His followers claimed he rose from the dead 3 days later, ascending to heaven. This belief in Jesus' resurrection became the foundation of Christianity. After Jesus' death, his disciples, led by Peter and later Paul of Tarsus, spread his teachings. Paul, a Pharisee who had persecuted Christians before converting, was the key figure in transforming Christianity from a Jewish sect into a universal religion. Paul preached that salvation was available to Gentiles, non-Jews, as well as Jews, through faith in Jesus Christ. He traveled across the Roman Empire, Greece, Asia Minor, Rome, establishing Christian communities and writing letters, epistles, that would become part of the New Testament. Christianity spread initially among the urban poor, slaves, and women, groups that found hope in its message of equality before God and eternal life. But Christianity also attracted the educated and wealthy. Its emphasis on charity, community, and moral living appealed to many disillusioned with the decadence and materialism of Roman society. Yet Christianity was viewed with suspicion by Roman authorities. Christians refused to worship the emperor or the Roman gods, which was seen as disloyalty, even treason. Christians were accused of atheism, disbelief in the gods, cannibalism, a misunderstanding of the Eucharist, and incest. Christians called each other brother and sister. Periodic persecutions targeted Christians. Nero's persecution in 64 CE was the first. Under Dacius in 250 CE and Diocletian in 303 to 311 CE, empire-wide persecutions sought to eradicate Christianity. Christians were arrested, tortured, and executed in the arena. Martyrdom, dying for one's faith, became a powerful symbol. Martyrs were venerated as saints, and their courage inspired others. The Christian writer Tertullian famously stated, "The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church." Despite persecution, Christianity grew. By the early 4th century, perhaps 10% of the empire's population was Christian. The turning point came with Emperor Constantine. Constantine, born around 280 CE, was a general competing for power during a period of civil war. In 312 CE, before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge near Rome, Constantine reportedly had a vision. He saw a cross in the sky with the words "In hoc signo vinces," "In this sign, you will conquer." Constantine ordered his soldiers to paint the Christian symbol, the Chi Rho, on their shields. He won the battle, defeating his rival Maxentius. Constantine attributed his victory to the Christian God and became Christianity's patron. In 313 CE, Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, granting religious tolerance and ending persecution of Christians. He returned confiscated property, funded church construction, and favored Christians in appointments. Though Constantine was not baptized until his deathbed, he transformed Christianity from a persecuted minority to a favored religion. In 325 CE, Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea, the first ecumenical council, to resolve doctrinal disputes. The council produced the Nicene Creed, defining Orthodox Christian belief and condemning heresies like Arianism. Constantine also moved the empire's capital from Rome to Byzantium, a city on the Bosporus, renaming it Constantinople, Constantine's city. This new Rome would become the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire and endure for over 1,000 years. Christianity's triumph was completed under Emperor Theodosius in 380 CE. Theodosius made Christianity the official state religion, banned pagan worship, and closed pagan temples. The ancient gods of Rome were dethroned. Within a century, Christianity had gone from a persecuted sect to the dominant religion of the empire. This transformation had profound consequences. Christianity brought new values: compassion for the poor, condemnation of infanticide and gladiatorial games, and the ideal of monogamous, lifelong marriage. But it also brought intolerance. Pagans, Jews, and heretics faced persecution. Theological disputes divided Christians, sometimes violently. The alliance of church and state created a powerful institution that would shape European history for over a millennium. By the 3rd century CE, the Roman Empire faced mounting challenges: economic crisis, military defeats, civil wars, and barbarian invasions. The decline and fall of Rome is one of history's great questions, debated by scholars for centuries. Let us explore the forces that brought down the Western Roman Empire. The 3rd century CE, known as the crisis of the 3rd century, was a period of chaos. From 235 to 284 CE, over 50 men claimed the title of emperor, most ruling for just months before being assassinated or defeated. Civil wars were constant, as generals and provincial governors fought for power. The economy collapsed. Inflation soared as emperors debased the coinage, reducing the silver content to fund the military. Trade declined, cities shrank, and the tax system broke down. Plague returned, the plague of Cyprian, killing millions and depopulating regions. Barbarian tribes raided the frontiers. The Goths, Vandals, Franks, and Alemanni crossed the Rhine and Danube, sacking cities and carrying off captives. In 260 CE, the Goths sacked Athens and other Greek cities. Persia, under the Sassanid dynasty, attacked in the east, capturing the Emperor Valerian in 260 CE, a humiliating defeat. The empire nearly fragmented. The Gallic Empire, breakaway provinces in Gaul, Britain, and Spain, ruled independently for 15 years. The Pomeranian Empire, centered in Syria, controlled the eastern provinces. But the empire survived. Emperors like Aurelian and Diocletian restored order. Diocletian, who ruled from 284 to 305 CE, reformed the empire. He divided it into 4 regions, the Tetrarchy, each ruled by an emperor or Caesar, hoping to provide stable succession and defense. He reformed the economy, fixing prices and reorganizing the tax system. He enlarged the army and built fortifications. Diocletian's reforms stabilized the empire, but also made it more authoritarian and bureaucratic. Constantine, Diocletian's successor, continued the reforms. He founded Constantinople, creating an eastern capital that would outlast Rome. But the empire was too large, too diverse, and too beset by problems to remain unified. In 395 CE, Emperor Theodosius I divided the empire between his 2 sons. Honorius received the west, Arcadius the east. This division, intended as administrative, became permanent. The Western Roman Empire, ruling from Rome and later Ravenna, faced relentless barbarian pressure. The Goths, Vandals, Franks, Burgundians, and other tribes were not organized armies but migrating peoples, fleeing the Huns, a fearsome nomadic people from Central Asia. The Huns, led by Attila in the mid-5th century, terrorized Europe, attacking both Romans and barbarians. Attila invaded Gaul in 451 CE, but was defeated at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains by a combined Roman-barbarian army. Attila then invaded Italy, but disease and lack of supplies forced him to withdraw. He died in 453 CE, and the Hun Confederation collapsed. But the damage was done. In 410 CE, the Visigoths, led by Alaric, sacked Rome, the first time the city had fallen to foreigners in 800 years. The sack was brief and relatively restrained. Alaric's men respected churches, but it shocked the world. In 455 CE, the Vandals sacked Rome again, this time more thoroughly. Barbarian tribes settled within the empire, carving out kingdoms: the Visigoths in Spain, the Vandals in North Africa, the Franks in Gaul, the Angles and Saxons in Britain. Roman authority crumbled. In 476 CE, the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, a boy of about 14, was deposed by Odoacer, a Germanic general. Odoacer declared himself king of Italy and sent the imperial regalia to Constantinople, acknowledging the Eastern Roman Emperor as the sole emperor. The Western Roman Empire was over. Historians mark 476 CE as the fall of the Western Roman Empire and the end of ancient Rome. But the fall was not a sudden catastrophe but a gradual transformation. Roman culture, law, language, and Christianity survived. The Eastern Roman Empire, later called the Byzantine Empire, endured for another 1,000 years, until 1453 CE. Latin evolved into the Romance languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian. Roman law influenced medieval and modern legal systems. The Catholic Church, centered in Rome, preserved Roman administrative structures and Latin learning. Barbarian kings ruled former Roman lands but adopted Roman titles, customs, and Christianity. The idea of Rome, the eternal city, never died. Rome fell, but its legacy endures. 2,000 years after Augustus, Roman influence shapes our world. Let us explore this legacy. Language: Latin, the language of Rome, is the foundation of the Romance languages, spoken by over 1 billion people. English, though Germanic, has borrowed thousands of Latin words, especially in law, science, and religion. Legal terms like habeas corpus, pro bono, and subpoena are Latin. Roman law, codified in the 6th century CE by Byzantine Emperor Justinian in the Corpus Juris Civilis, influenced European legal systems. Civil law, practiced in much of Europe, Latin America, and parts of Asia and Africa, is based on Roman law. Concepts like contracts, property rights, and legal procedure derive from Rome. Architecture: Roman architectural innovations, the arch, the vault, the dome, concrete are still used. Buildings like the US Capitol, the Pantheon in Paris, and countless government buildings and churches reflect Roman design. Engineering: Roman roads, aqueducts, and bridges demonstrated principles still taught in engineering. The Roman emphasis on infrastructure, public works, and urban planning influenced city design. Government: the Roman Republic inspired modern republics. The United States Senate, the concept of checks and balances, the rule of law all have Roman precedents. The Roman eagle became the symbol of many nations and empires. Christianity: Rome's adoption of Christianity made it a world religion. The organizational structure of the Catholic Church mirrors Roman administration. The Pope, based in Rome, is a direct link to the ancient Roman world. Culture: Roman literature, philosophy, and mythology influenced Western culture. Virgil, Ovid, and Horace were studied for centuries. Roman myths, Greek myths as told by Romans, shaped art, literature, and psychology. Stoicism, a Roman philosophical school, influenced thinkers from Marcus Aurelius to modern self-help writers. Calendar: the Julian calendar, reformed by Julius Caesar, with months named after Roman gods and emperors. January for Janus, July for Julius, August for Augustus, is the basis of the modern calendar. Concepts of citizenship: republic, senate, emperor, triumph, gladiator, arena all are Latin words that have entered global vocabulary. The Western world, in many ways, is Rome's heir. The Renaissance revived classical learning, art, and architecture. The Enlightenment drew on Roman ideals of reason, law, and republicanism. European empires, from the Holy Roman Empire to the British Empire, claimed to be Rome's successors. Even the word empire derives from imperium, Roman authority. Rome's fall teaches lessons: the dangers of overexpansion, the fragility of institutions, the consequences of inequality, the importance of adaptation. But Rome's achievements, its law, its engineering, its literature, its spread of a common culture across diverse peoples demonstrate humanity's capacity for greatness. Rome was not perfect. It was built on slavery, conquest, and inequality. It was often brutal, arrogant, and corrupt. But it also created systems of law and governance, works of art and literature, and a vision of a universal, cosmopolitan civilization that continues to inspire. And so, our journey through the Roman Empire comes to an end. We have walked the hills of early Rome, from the mud huts of shepherds to the marble splendor of Augustus. We have witnessed the founding of the Republic, the expulsion of kings, and the creation of a government that balanced the Senate and the people. We have marched with the legions, conquering Italy, Carthage, Greece, and Gaul. We have met the giants of the late Republic, the Gracchi, Marius and Sulla, Pompey and Crassus, and the greatest of them all, Julius Caesar. We have crossed the Rubicon, fought at Pharsalus, and witnessed the assassination on the Ides of March. We have sailed the Nile with Cleopatra, watched the Battle of Actium, and seen the birth of the empire under Augustus. We have lived through the Julio-Claudians, from the madness of Caligula to the burning of Rome under Nero. We have celebrated the 5 good emperors, the golden age of Rome, when the empire stretched from Scotland to the Sahara, from the Atlantic to Mesopotamia. We have explored Roman life, the baths and forums, the gladiators and chariots, the aqueducts and roads, the literature and law. We have witnessed the rise of Christianity, from a persecuted sect to the religion of the empire. And we have watched the decline and fall, the barbarian invasions, the sack of Rome, and the end of the Western Empire in 476 CE. But Rome did not truly die. It lives in our languages, our laws, our architecture, our institutions, and our ideals. It lives in the concept of the Republic, in the rule of law, in the idea that diverse peoples can be united by shared culture and governance. Rome was the greatest empire of the ancient world, and in many ways it has never fallen. As you drift off to sleep tonight, carry with you the images of Rome, the legions marching in perfect formation, the aqueducts carrying water across valleys, the Colosseum rising against the sky, the Senate debating in the Forum, Julius Caesar standing at the Rubicon, Augustus addressing his people, the glory and tragedy of an empire that shaped the world. Sleep well, knowing that we are all, in some way, children of Rome. And may the legacy of Rome inspire you to build, to create, to strive for greatness, and to remember that civilizations, like individuals, rise and fall, but their achievements echo through eternity. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with marble columns, triumphal arches, and the eternal glory of Rome. From Histo-Hispa, thank you for joining this journey through the Roman Empire. This has been the 7th in our series, exploring the great civilizations of history. We have traveled to Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, to Greece, the birthplace of democracy and philosophy, to medieval Europe, the age of knights and cathedrals, to the lands of the Vikings, the seafaring warriors of the north, to China, the empire of the dragon, to Japan, the land of the samurai, and now to Rome, the eternal city, the empire that shaped the Western world. Each civilization has offered unique insights, achievements, and lessons. Together, they represent the richness and diversity of human history, the capacity for both greatness and tragedy. As you rest tonight, know that history is not just the past. It lives in us, in the institutions we inherit, the languages we speak, the stories we tell. We are the products of thousands of years of human endeavor, the heirs of countless individuals who built, dreamed, and struggled. May the wisdom of the ancients guide us. May the beauty they created inspire us. And may the courage they showed give us strength. Sleep peacefully, traveler. And when you wake, may you carry with you a deeper appreciation for the journey of humanity, and a commitment to adding your own chapter to this great story. From all of us at Histo-Hispa, good night. And thank you for being part of this timeless journey.